Welcome, everyone. We are looking at Intro to Scouting today. So, today, what are we covering? We're going to talk about why you should scout. We're going to talk about the role of the scout. We're going to talk about what you need. We're going to look at a few parts of what you need, including the ships there, as well as what you need as a person, both your character in-game and you as your abilities. We'll go through what scouting actually looks like step by step. We'll talk about what that looks like. I'm going to warn you now, that looks really overwhelming when you see it. Don't be afraid. We will go through it piece by piece and I'll show you in game, and it is not as scary as it looks. I'm just giving you that warning now. So we'll talk about how to find people. We'll talk a little bit about scouting as teamwork. I've got a few just random points I couldn't find anywhere else good to stick in. And then I don't have it on here, but we are going to end with Q&A and then a practical demo where, yeah, I go out to nullsec and try and tackle some Ishtars. Okay, so I kind of alluded to this already with the intro, but why should you scout? EVE is a sandbox. First and foremost, we need content in the game. If nobody is undocking, if nobody is going out and doing stuff, there is no content happening. The game is boring. To get content, generally, we need a group of people. If you have a group of people out in space doing something, you want to make sure they're safe. How do you make sure they're safe? You have a scout that's around checking things out. If you're looking for people to kill, you need a scout to go find them. Scouts are content providers. If anyone here was in my intro to FCing class that I did last week, I talked about how FCs are content creators, so are scouts. FCs and scouts together are creating a lot of content for everyone to enjoy there. So it is an important role to have. It is one that is so vital to a fleet. If we do not have a scout, we cannot have a fleet. If we just have 10 or 20 of us in a fleet with 0 scouts, we are probably going to jump into a gate camp, or we're going to struggle to find anything to kill because everything will see us coming. Scouts are always needed. I have been on, I don't know, probably over 100 fleets at this point, probably maybe a couple hundred, I don't know. I can think of maybe once where somebody said no to having another scout amongst all those fleets. Generally, the problem is we don't have enough scouts. Generally, we are looking for more scouts in our fleets. If you are looking for a role to do an EVE that will always be useful, and there will always be people telling you, hey, come to my fleet, I want you, I need you here. Scouting is that role. Always can use more scouts. It's very vital. Scouting is also very engaging. So scouting is a lot more interesting than just flying DPS or Logi. I want to pause here and say I am not hating on DPS or Logi or anything there. DPS and Logi are great roles to fly. They're things we need, and they're things we need the majority of our fleet in. But as you go on more fleets, as you fly on more and more fleets, after you've done 20 different AAF roams, after you've been in Merlin's 50 times, you might start to get a little bored of that, right? You're just following along, you're clicking on a target and pressing F1. That might not be the most engaging thing for you. If you're looking for something more involved, scouting is much more involved. Scouting takes a lot more attention, time, focus, communication. It's a lot more engaging than just pressing F1. Again, we do need a lot of people to press F1 though, so I'm not hating on that. And there are times when I'm tired or I'm exhausted and I just don't want to scout, that is what I want to do instead. I see a question in chat already. Are scout needs different for PvP and PvE fleets? Yes, they are. We will talk a bit about the different roles played there. I will say my focus today is on PvP fleets, but there are uses for scouts in PvE fleets, especially since we just got war decked and we'll have a war starting shortly. There is a good use for scouts in PvE fleets that we'll cover. Being a scout is also a great learning experience. So as a scout, you will learn to be a lot more comfortable operating in nullsec, operating out in wormhole space, operating in dangerous areas of space comfortably by yourself. You know, it's intimidating the first couple times you go out into these dangerous parts of space. If you go out in a fleet with 20 other Merlins and an FC taking care of you, it's not so bad. As a scout, you have a lot more independence there. You learn to become comfortable operating in that space. Also, if you have ideas of one day wanting to be an FC, scouting is a great way to get into that. Scouting is a great way to learn FCing. I mentioned it in the FCing class. I'm going to mention it again here. There's a great quote from Francie. Uh, Not every FC is a good scout, but every good scout can be a good FC. As you're scouting, it's a great step up. You're learning the skills, you're learning how to decide on targets, how to decide on routes to go, how to decide what to do with a fleet, what a fleet can engage. Scouting is a perfect step up to go from the transition from being a fleet member to being a fleet commander. You don't need to. If you never want to be an FC, that's completely fine. One of the best scouts I know, Exunista, Bazinga Among Us, if anyone's flown with him, amazing scout. Sometimes I think he has a button on his keyboard that can just summon content, like he can just make Ishtars appear for us to shoot. He doesn't like FCing, but he loves scouting, and he'll go out and find that. And that's perfectly well. You can do that. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah, some more reactions to that code in chat. Yeah. Yeah, it's possible to be bad at both. That's fine. Again, these aren't things that you need to do, but they're a way of expanding your playing. So, the scout. What does the scout do? There's a few things they do. Some people talk about hero tackle. Some call them hunters. Lots of different stuff. Scouting for a combat fleet is what I'm going to be talking about mostly today, because this is my experience and where I put my time. So we're going to be looking at going ahead for a combat fleet where you find targets to shoot and you are tackling them and letting the fleet catch up. Sometimes scouting is just going +1. +1 has two different meanings in EVE, just to make it extra confusing. If somebody says they are going +1, what that means is they are going ahead of the fleet one jump. So somebody will just be one jump ahead. So they're always one system ahead to give a view of what's going on. +1 as a general statement can also mean that someone new just came into local. And so there's +1 in the count of people in local. So if you get confused hearing +1 a few times, it's got different meanings. It could mean either one of those, depending on if they use it as a verb or not. Great question. There's a question in chat. What does tackling mean? I believe that's covered on the next slide, but as a whole, tackling is when you catch a target and you put your warp disruptor on them so that they cannot warp away. So tackling means that you trap them there, basically. They can't get away, you tackle something, they're stuck there with you, and then your fleet comes in and kills them. So scouts play the role of tackle a lot. Scouts also report intel. So there's a question earlier about PvE fleets. Sometimes scouts can do that. They might be sitting one system away and just giving intel. So maybe you've got a mining fleet that's out. You're mining with an orca or a porpoise and a bunch of hulks. You've got a lot of ISK out there that you're risking, but you think there might be some enemies around. So you have some people that are sitting scouting in neighboring systems that will give you intel. They'll say, oh, an enemy just came in, heads up, there's an enemy one jump away from you. Similar for combat fleets, scouts also give intel in that. When you go into a new system, you tell the FC, hey, there's this fleet in here or there's this in here. You're providing the intel. Scouts go out looking for targets. This is that hunting and tackling. So scouts find things and they go and they tackle them. This can be anything really. A scout might find somebody ratting like a Vexor or Ishtar. They might find some miners. They might find something gating. They might find anything that they can tackle, an explorer, lots of options. They look for things for the fleet to fight. And the scout's job is to secure the target until the fleet arrives, and that is that tackling I was talking about. So let's say our fleet is all in Stackman right now. Our scout goes into Slays, they find an enemy in Slays, they warp to the enemy, they put the warp disruptor on, that tackles the enemy, so now the enemy can't escape. Then the fleet comes in and joins the fun and fights the enemy together. So what do you need to scout? We're going to go through a breakdown of a few different parts. In terms of modules, the most important one, the must-have, is that warp disruptor I was talking about, also called a point. This confused me so much when I started playing EVE the first time, because to me, point sounds like it should be short range. But the point is actually the longer range one. So the point is the warp disruptor. This stops people from warping away. This can have a range between 20 to 30 kilometers roughly, depending. There are ships that can do further, like the Chesis or things like that. Orthrus, they can do much further. But as a whole, assume 20 to 30 kilometers for a point. This is the must-have for a scout. If you don't have a point, you cannot be scouting. Well, sorry, you can still scout, but you can't be tackling things. You need a point to tackle things. You can still go +1 and share intel. There are some other mid slots that are useful to have. Things like a web, a scram, or in the I slots, you might have a combat probes. Webs slow down a target, so they're useful for making a target easier to shoot or make it harder for them to get away and crash a gate. Scrams are like a point, and lots of people get the two confused. So a warp disruptor has a range of 20 to 30 kilometers. When you use it, an enemy will be unable to warp. A warp scrambler has a much shorter range, usually around 10 kilometers or less. The warp scrambler turns off an enemy's micro warp drive. So a warp scrambler will slow down a fast-moving target. So if you are trying to fight a very fast-moving ship and you put a warp disruptor on it, it might still be able to escape because it just gets far enough away from you that it can break your point. Warp scramblers will slow your target down by turning off the micro warp drive. There are some ships that will be a bit stronger. For example, a Venture. A normal warp disruptor doesn't work on a Venture because they have extra strength. So if you see in the top right there, the warp scramble strength, Venture you need to have at least 2. So one disruptor alone won't tackle a Venture. You need to have multiple people on them or have a scram. Some ships might fit a warp core stabilizer that does similar. So you'll see this on explorers or some haulers at times too. So sometimes you might try to tackle a hauling ship, and even though you've got it pointed, it can still warp away. So that's where the scram comes in. Scrims are also useful for if you're fighting battleships or larger, because they can have micro jump drives that make them jump 100 kilometers away, and you need a scram to stop that. So if you tackle a Praxis with your long point, sometimes that Praxis can just hit their micro jump drive and then they're 100 kilometers from you and they just warp out anyways. So a point and a scram are a great combo. You don't always need the scram, but scrams help against a lot of enemies. I see a lot of discussion in chat about the points. Yeah, it might be called point because it applies 1 point of disruption. Yeah, just that one could be. Or the idea of pointing that you're saying that's the target. Yeah, lots of ideas. Yeah, so as a whole, to reiterate, you need a warp disruptor. These other things are useful to have. Combat probes let you scan down enemy ships. You will see these on more specialty roles, some of our T3Ds, for example, or some of our co-ops. We'll talk about those in a little bit. And as a whole, as a scout, you need some sort of tank because you go, you find an enemy, you tackle them, and then your fleet comes to kill them, but your fleet might take 30 seconds or a minute or two to arrive. So you need some way to survive for that 1 minute while that enemy is trying to kill you. So having some sort of tank is the way to do it. Generally, in scouting ships, we're flying fast ships, so we rely on speed to be the tank. So if you're in a malediction, for example, you just hope that you're quick enough that you can outrun their drones or that you can have enough transversal that their guns can't hit you. There are some fits that have shield or armor buffer tank as well, but honestly on a scouting ship, those usually don't last long. I see Enyo's here in chat talking a lot. Enyo's got a scouting tackle wolf, I believe, that's built up with a ton of tank right now that they're trying to experiment with. Maybe they'll start working eventually. It worked well-ish yesterday, actually. Ooh, good question. What's the optimal range to speed tank? Yeah, so that's going to depend a lot on what you're fighting. So if you're fighting a large ship with large guns, sometimes you want to be in close so you can be under their guns, depending on what you're fighting. Like if I was to tackle something like a Naga, I would just orbit that at 500 with a scram on because that could micro jump drive away. So I would just be right on top of that. It's not going to hit me because I'm too close. If you're fighting something that's got smaller or medium guns that can shoot that close, then I usually try to keep about a 20-kilometer range. You can auto orbit or do manual one. I would suggest manual, but as you're learning, a 20-kilometer auto orbit works too. But yeah, as a whole, it's going to depend on the weapons of the enemy. Yeah, it depends a lot on what they're shooting. Da-da-da. There's a question about the speed that makes drones stop following your ship. I have not seen anyone hit that speed before that I know of, but maybe someone could do that if you broke like 10K. I'm not sure. Um, Drones will vary a lot on the enemy type of drones too. We'll talk about that when we talk about Ishtars later. Okay, so what do you need for scouting? The ship types. We've got a lot of different ship options here. I don't want this to overwhelm you, so I'm going to talk broadly in categories, and I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this. Um, to start, we have the T1 Empire frigates. These are a great way to learn to scout. Our preferred one of these is the Condor. If you're in a Merlin fleet, the Condor is a great way to learn to scout. They're cheap, they're quick, they go very fast, they can do the job. Unfortunately, they don't have a lot of health, so they do die quick. I'm not sure if Helen's in here today, but I know Helen has been learning to scout, doing a lot lately, and Helen's been in the Condors, and he keeps saying that. Keeps saying, oh, I can fly a Condor, I can catch things, but I'm going to die fast. So great way to learn, but just don't expect to live long if you're on one of these. We have faction frigates as well that have certain bonuses. I am going to tell you now, on a uni fleet, I have never seen anyone use one of these as a scouting ship. Sometimes you will see them used on other fleets, but as a whole, they are not really used. They don't have a great spot. Generally, people go a step above these if they're going to be in a scouting ship. The most common one you'll see around are the interceptors. So interceptors are fast, they're speedy, they have special bonuses that make them great scouts. The one that we fly the most here in the uni is the Malediction. If you look on Zkill, the Malediction is one of the top ships for kills out there. It's just the most popular tackling interceptor as a whole. You're welcome to fly the Crow, the Ares, or the Stiletto. They all do the same job, just they all have different bonuses and arrangements of mid slots and low slots. The Malediction is the right balance of speed and tank that people prefer. I'm not 100% why. I'm sure someone could get into comparing. It's probably on the Wiki article even. The extras of flying an interceptor, as you can see, they get extra range on their bonus for their range. So with each level of the interceptor skill, your scram and your point get further, and your micro warp drive signature radius goes down. That's a big one. So when you turn on your micro warp drive in most ships, you are blooming your signal radius. So you are actually a bigger target while you have your micro warp drive on, and guns hit you easier. When you're in an interceptor, that is much less of a risk. So in some ships, you don't want to turn your micro warp drive on in combat because it makes you take more damage. With an interceptor, that's not as much of a risk. You can run your micro warp drive more in an interceptor. It's a nice benefit. I will say interceptors does take a little bit of training to get into, so that is why a lot of people do scout in a Condor first before they get into a Crow or a Malediction. There are Covops frigates as well. These are ones that can cloak and then they can combat probe down enemies. They don't last long once they do decloak. This isn't something we use a lot of in the uni, but you will see Bombers Bar use these. Bombers Bar, lots of times they will use one of these in combination with a bubbler. So they'll have some bubbler bubble the target, while their co-op frigate will then go, well, maybe co-op frigate is the one to combat probe the target, then they bubble it, and then they light the Sino. Again, not something we use a lot of, but it is an option there. We have interdictors as well. Interdictors are bubblers, right? These are the ones who launch bubbles that you can use in Null and Wormhole. You can scout in an interdictor. It is possible. It's not something we do a whole lot of. We might use an interdictor here as a backup scout, but it is possible. You have your choice of flavors there. All four have their different strengths or weaknesses, tank or speed or such. More DPS from the Eris, I think. So you get a mix there. Again, not normally a primary scout, but that's not to say they can't be. These can warp quick, they can tackle people, so they can work as a scout in a pinch. And then we have the T3Ds. T3Ds are nice. They can go very quick. They can combat probe enemies down. They can survive a bit more once they're on grid. They're a little tankier in a way. So T3Ds can work well as scouts. They just take a bit more skills and they are also a bit more expensive. So that's not something we fly a lot of as scouts here in the uni either, because we prefer the cheaper fleets, but this is an option that you can fly too. Mhm. Okay, any questions about these ship types there? Like I said, I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time on this, but generally interceptors are what we do most of. Yes, we have some big T3D lovers in the chat there for sure. Oh yes, I didn't talk about ramjags. Ramjags are an option as well. Ramjags are a bit more focused on slowing down a certain ship in a fleet once you get into a fleet engagement, but yeah, you could scout in a ramjag. So what do you need? I mentioned this already, but I like to focus on the Condor and the Malediction. We have a fitting for both in the uni. You can find these on the fitting website. You can find them in game. If you look, the Condor has no high slots, right? We don't care about guns. As a scout, your role is not to provide damage. You don't have to do a single point of damage. Your whole job is to find the targets and to lock them down. So you find a target, you stop it from running away. The Malediction does have a nullifier in the high slot. Nullifier makes you immune to bubbles when you use it, so that's a handy thing. I usually modify my Malediction fits, and I also add a core probe to the high slot, just a tier 1 one. And I just do that so that I can scan down holes in Pochvin to leave through a Pochvin wormhole. Theoretically, you could scan down red sites with it as well, but usually people are gone by the time you've done that. I will talk about skills, yes, and there is a corporation skill plan. There was a slide that I think was supposed to be right next that had a bunch of skills, but I deleted it because it was a little busy. But we will talk skill plans in a moment. Like I said, weapons are optional. You don't need to do any damage as a scout, just tackle things. Famous tackler Dave 911, always flying a Malediction. He does have one weapon on his Malediction so that he can kill things he catches, but you don't need it. His is a very expensive Malediction fit as well. This fit that we have, it does the job. It's pretty standard as well. If you look at other Maledictions that die in other corps, their fitting is pretty much the exact same. You can downgrade things as need be or upgrade as well as you go through. Maybe you want to make the Condor a little tankier because you can't fly the Interceptor yet. That's fine. In terms of SRP, which is the Ship Replacement Program, this is where the uni will pay for your ship losses and fleets. If you are in a scouting ship, you generally will always get advanced SRP, which means they will cover most of the cost of your ship. Not 100%, but if you go on some fleets, they might be flying something that's not an official doctrine or it's a mess, and they will only get base SRP, which is a lower amount. But as a scout, you will always be getting advanced SRP, regardless of what fleet you're flying in. So that's a nice thing. Scouts ship losses are covered pretty well. And yeah, there's more fits on the wiki. If you want to check out more options there, you can find ones for the Ares and things like that, stilettos and all. Question, yeah, with webs do you get on kill mail? Yes. Any kind of E-war that you apply will get you on a kill mail. So I said I deleted the slide about skills just because we have this option now. So if you're in the uni, you can look, we have a skill plan. If you go into corporation plans, we do have a scouting and tackle plan that you can look at there that will show you some skills that are useful to get into. I will say it looks intimidating. You don't need to have all the skills to 5. I have 3 of the skills in there to 4 only. So that's 73 days as if I want to take those last ones to 5. And those aren't a priority for me right now. If you have other priorities, focus on that. Interceptors 5 is a nice thing to have if you're doing a lot of scouting, but that's a big investment to make if you're not doing it a lot. Yeah, check out that skill plan. Take a look. Get what you can to 3 or 4 in there. It'll help you out. There's a question about practicing scouting. Yeah, so scouting is something you can practice on your own, like I'm about to do at the end of this with the practical demonstration. You can just take a filament and go out solo and try and tackle things. You can also scout on fleets just by telling the FC, hey, I've never scouted before, but I want to try. Can I sign up maybe with a more experienced scout showing me? Lots of FCs will love that. I should mention now too, we do have a video recording version of a Intro to Scouting class as well that's kicking around somewhere. It's recorded by Clarities. He's an ex-unista. He was the leader of our scouting skill plan. And he is now an Alliance tournament winner too, so he's got all these big titles on his name. But Clarity's has a recorded version of as well of him going out scouting that shows a lot of how it's done. Someone will link that. Thank you, Lacram. I knew somebody would have that link ready. I would recommend watching that at some point too. That is more in-game. Clarity's in his version doesn't really cover these slides. He's just more go out in space and get stuff done because that's who he is. Okay, moving on. So what do you need as a player? So you need to have some piloting skills. You need to be able to pilot your ship on your own from system to system. You need to think independently there. If you're in a fleet, normally your FC will tell you align to this gate, jump this gate. As a scout, you need to make those decisions on your own, so you need to figure that out. This requires reading a map a bit as well, so you might have to look at Dotlan or EVI or the in-game map and figure things out. For combat situations, manual piloting is a big plus. You can scout hitting the orbit button on enemies and trying that. You might die more often than someone who's manual piloting, but you can do it. Manual piloting as a whole, though, will keep you alive, especially if enemies start showing up and tackling you. If you can manual pilot away, it'll work. And you need to know how to do bookmarks. Bookmarks are very easy. You just press Control B, and then when you hit the submit button, it will save a bookmark of wherever you are. But yeah, you need to know how to make a safe. You'll need to know how to create a rolling safe. A rolling safe is just when you are on a safe, you align to something and turn on your micro warp drive, so you're constantly moving. It's not hard. And gate perches. Gate perches are super useful. So this is where you are at a gate and you're more than 150 kilometers off and you make some bookmarks there. So this is very helpful for your fleet so they have spots to bounce to and they can warp around. Hunting skills. So this is a core part of scouting in combat fleets is being able to hunt, and that is descanning. So you need to know how to use descan. This is something that we don't have a whole lot of classes on these days. We had one guy, Lobovaser, who used to run an intro to descan class every 2 weeks. He did that for years, but unfortunately he has left the uni recently. So anyone listening, if you want to run an intro to descan class, we definitely need that. So someone please run intro to descan. Very useful. Knowing how to descan, important here. You need to be able to find your targets. So you need to be able to descan down havens or combat sites to find where they are. You need to be able to look at local and overview and figure those out. I'll walk through what that means in a couple slides. And yeah, you should be able to access some third-party tools and websites. Zkill, Dotlan, Local Threat. Those are some examples that we'll talk about in a bit here. Okay, and finally, you need communication skills. Yes. So as a scout, well, honestly, most of you have probably been on PvP fleets and heard how much the scouts talk. Lots of times fleets turn into just the scouts and FC relaying information back and forth between each other. So as a scout, you do need to be able to chat and talk. This can be just clear, quick, concise things. You know, you don't want to spend 2 minutes telling the FC what's on the other side of a gate. You got to be able to say it quickly. What do you need in terms of your computer or equipment physically? Not much. You need a microphone. End of the day. We have had people scout without microphones before, and it is okay, but it's just not efficient. It takes way too long to type out and list. It is way easier for me just to verbally say, hey, there's 10 ships on the other side of this gate. It's these ones, than it is for someone to type that out. So as a whole, you need a microphone for scouting, I would say. If you are just on a fleet, then you're not scouting, you don't need a microphone. Don't worry. If you don't like talking in comms, that's completely fine. Just scouting is not for you, probably then. No offense. It's something you need. It does help to have a second monitor as well, so that you can look up things like Dotlan, Zkill, other map ones, EVI, etc. You can scout on a single monitor though. To reference Francie again, Francie is a great scout, and lots of times he's on a single monitor as he's doing things. Just quickly alt tabs to look at maps, or people use the EVI overlay. If you have the EVI overlay, it will actually show a map over your EVE client, so that can be useful. You can also use Zkill. Zkill is useful just for looking up activity in a region. Maybe you land in Oasa and you're wondering what's going on in here. You look up and ZKLC. Oh, look, in Oasis, someone died 5 minutes ago in this system. We should go look over there. Okay, let's see. We got a lot to talk about Final Fantasy 14 in chat going on here. And yes, yes, Evi is something I keep telling myself I'm going to learn one of these days because it sounds like it's superior in so many ways. It's just Dotlan is just such an easier interface to tell at first glance. But once you learn Evi, Evi is apparently amazing. So something to work towards. Okay, here comes the overload I was talking about. I'm going to try and walk you through this step by step, what it looks like. Again, if this feels like a lot and you get lost, don't stress it. I'm going to do examples in game later on. You'll see what it looks like there. I just wanted to have an all-in-one spot idea of what you should do when you get into systems as a scout. Okay? So this is assuming that you are out on a roam and that you are going +1. So you are ahead of your fleet. I'm also going to say this is assuming that you are a still newer scout and you've got a newer FC. I don't have a good spot to put this in here, but as a whole, scouting relies a lot on your relationship with the FC. So when I am scouting for FCs that I've flown with a bunch, I actually talk less because I know how they fly, I know they trust me. We can kind of sort things out on our own. When I'm flying with a new FC that I haven't flown with before, I might talk more and I might do more of this formulaic stuff because it helps clear it up. As a new scout, it's also useful to go through these steps just so that you get the hang of it and know what to do. So first and foremost, when you're a scout and you need to talk, if other people are talking in comms, you just say check, check. Check, check is a polite way of saying everybody shut up. Shut up and listen to me. Check, check. It's saying, hey, something important is going to happen. Check, check. When you hear check, check, you be quiet, you listen to what the scout has to say. So, scout's going. They're jumping into a system. They say check, check. They go into that system. First things first, you hold your gate cloak. When you jump a gate, you are invisible for 60 seconds. Make use of that time. Use that time to decide what you're going to do. Don't just go and warp right away unless you see a target you can get real easy. Take a minute, maybe not a full minute, but take a few seconds at least to assess what's going on. You should check 3 things when you get into system. You want to check local, overview, and dscan. The order you check them will vary. I find sometimes local loads before dscan loads, so I look at local first. I usually look at my overview last, honestly, unless I see something glaringly obvious there. But yeah, you check these things and you're checking for targets. When I say check local, that means you look at local chat and you look at the number for how many people are in it. You can see that in the upper right of the screen there, local 28. So this scout just jumped into this system with 28 people in it. Remember, you are one of those 28. So there are actually 27 other people in system. So if I was to do this, I would jump in, I would say, okay, we've got 27 people in local. Then you take a look at dscan. You look at your dscan results. This is an old screenshot from the old UI. I was too lazy to update it. You check your dscan and you tell your FC, what do you see on dscan? So maybe you enter a gate and there's 28 people in local, but nothing on dscan because your gate's far away from stuff. So in that case, you're clear for now. You know you got to go check a different part of space. And you can check your overview. Just check if there's any hostile ships on grid with you. You tell your FC what you see. So you can say scout name and system name. Yeah. Remember, in Eve, when we're talking on comms, we usually try to do third person because not everybody knows each other's voices. Honestly, as a scout with FCs, the FC probably knows your voice after 2 or 3 minutes of you being there, so you don't have to say your name every time. Some people still like to just for the formality. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. So I would jump into the system. I would say, oh, check, check, Tomlin in Slays, 28 in local. Or 27 in local. Yes, again, -1 for yourself. Tell them if there's something on grid, mention it. So 27 in local. Oh, there's a saber sitting on the gate here with me. If there isn't anything, just mention what's on dscan or say dscan's clear. Once you've done that, you start hunting. So your hunting is when you start looking for the enemies. When we are looking for radders and miners, first spot we normally check is the anomalies. These are the green sites in your probe scanner that you can warp to without having to scan them down with probes. So you take a look. If you see ships on D-scan when you enter a system, check the anomalies. Set your D-scan to 5 degrees and start clicking on anomalies to see if they're at any of the anomalies within 14. Depending on the number, you might change your range first. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But you D-scan those down. If there are anomalies that are more than 14 AU out of range, you warp to those, or you warp to something close to them so you can D-scan them. It's also worth checking asteroid belts at times. It's rare that you'll find people in asteroid belts, but it happens instead of anomalies. It's worth checking. And you should check the ESS and stations. Quite often you'll find enemy ships are sitting at stations on tether when you get in there because they already have intel and know you're coming. And the ESS is those banks that get robs. You should verbalize what you're doing. So you say, okay, Tomlin in Slays, 27 in local, nothing on grid, nothing on D-scan, warping to the sun. Normally the sun is in this, well, not normally, every time the sun is in the center of a system. When you get there, normally there are anomalies around the sun. So the sun is a good spot to go looking. Don't go to the sun in Pochven. Sun is deadly in Pochven, but in other areas, the sun can be okay for scouting. Personally, I usually warp to a combat site near the sun and just hope that I land on an enemy randomly. But yeah. You should mention. So you can say, oh, I see an Ishtar on D. There's an Ishtar. I'm going to find it. Oh, okay, it's in this haven. In warp to it. Then when you find the target, you land on it. You tackle it. You say, yeah, warp in there. Oh, scout has point. Everybody warp to scout. Honestly, this is probably the hardest part, is getting that actual point. I'll tell you, most of the time that you see an enemy on D-scan, by the time you find them and warp to them, they are gone and running away. So I would not always, I would recommend some caution here and assuming that you'll get this every time, but don't worry about that. We'll talk about it more later too. Okay, so this slide, again, it's a bit much, it's a bit confusing, but as a whole, the middle of the slide is meant to be what you are saying verbally in comms to your FC, what information you're relaying, all this intel. As you get more experienced, as you and the FC you're flying with build your relationships, you might be able to skip some of these steps. There have been times that I've been flying with different scouts and they've just said, oh, hey, I have something tackled 2 jumps away from you. I went, oh, I didn't even know you were in that system, but cool. Okay, we're coming. That's something that comes with experience. As you're starting to learn how to scout, focus on that. Say where you are, say what's in local, say what's on grid, say what's on D-scan, find it. Yeah, as things go on, keep relaying new intel to the FC. I'm going to talk about this in the in-game demo, but one thing you should always be doing, even when you're not scouting, when you're out in hostile space, you should always have your local chat select all. So you should always press Control A in your local chat so you can see if there's any new people that show up. Yeah, you want to find targets. I really need to redo this slide. I'm putting that on my to-do list. Okay, so I covered it a bit there. How do we actually find the targets? So you're in a system. You have gone in, you've checked local, you've checked overview, you see something on D-scan. Again, we check local first. I definitely remembered this slide, and I am not just making this up as I go. So when you get in, you check local, you check your overview, you see nothing there. Now you start descanning. With the descan, you see, is anything within 14 AU of you? If there's nothing within 14 AU of you, you move on to another area. Now we go here. You start by checking the anomalies. This is an old screenshot, but the core of it is the same here. So in this case, this person jumped into system here. They have their D-scan only set at 10 AU instead of 14. So they're trying to get things down. And they see an Imicus on scan with probes out. Honestly, if this was me, I would not try and hunt down an Imicus because it's probably sitting in a safe, but you could. You could try and pinpoint it down. It might be somewhere you can get. But yeah, as a whole, you start adjusting your range and angle to find it more down. First things first, you check the plexes. Plexes are those green sites, whether they be combat or ore sites. Take a look at those, see what's there. Look at your probe scanner window. Okay, there are 2 plexes within 10 AU. I will quickly check those 2 plexes with a 5-degree scan. If there's like 30 plexes within 10 AU, well, maybe start going slower. Start looking at 5 AU range. Let's try to find the actual distance. You adjust the range as need be here. If there are a lot of plexes that are more than 14 AU away, then you might want to warp over to that cluster. This is something I'm going to explain in better a lot more in game when we get there. Not using these slides. I need to redo this slide too. You can pinpoint the target by adjusting the D-scan angle. So you set your angle to 5%. Some people will do smaller cones. They will do like a 60% scan towards a cluster and check that. Personally, I do 5% and I check individual clusters or individual complexes, but different people have different ways. Okay, definitely going to redo this slide. Bit more. Scouting is teamwork. So you can have more than one scout, as I mentioned. In fact, you should try to have at least 2 to 3 scouts on every single fleet. Partly because scouts die a lot too, so it's good to have backups, but partly because multiple scouts will make the job easier. You can have a scout and a backup. This is a good way of doing it. One person scouts and the second one is there to come and assist. So maybe we have one person go in, they find 3 enemies in a system that they could tackle. They go for one, the backup scout comes in and goes for a different one. Or maybe they find something big and scary that could kill the scout quick, so you have 2 people go and tackle it so that they're more likely to survive. You can have a side scout. So side scouts are ones who check neighboring systems as you're traveling. Lots of times there might be a path we're going on, but there's systems 1 or 2 jumps off the path that are worth checking. So it's useful to have someone that's doing that. You can also have a -1. This isn't something we do much of in the uni, but a +1 scout is somebody who goes 1 ahead in your travel path, and a -1 is someone who goes 1 behind. This is to make sure that an enemy fleet doesn't sneak up behind you. This is something more useful when you're in bigger, slower ships. If we were doing like a battleship fleet, it could be useful to have a secondary scout -1ing. But when we do frigate fleets, generally we're moving quicker than anything chasing us. So a -1 isn't as big. You can do some tandem work where you take turns, where you're both going +1, you're both descanning together. This is debatable on if this works or not. I like to have scouts in different systems. You can have people leapfrog, which is where one scout goes +1 and the other goes +2, and then they kind of alternate as they go, so they can move a bit quicker. I haven't touched on it yet, but one of the key reasons we have a scout going ahead is because of local chat and people watching. So I want you to picture that you are out mining or ratting in nullsec. There are 10 people in local, they're all your friends. Every now and then you see one person come into system, maybe a shuttle goes by on D-scan. Okay, no big deal. If you all of a sudden see a full fleet of 20 ships jump into local that are not your friends, you're going to go and you're going to warp up and get safe right away. But that one person that you see, that one person's probably a shuttle. You don't have to worry about one person, so you're just going to keep mining. That's where the scout comes in. The idea of a scout is that they are just one person in local showing up, so they're not as big of a warning to the enemies that there's a fleet coming. If 20 of us jump a gate, the enemies will see that and they will know that a fleet is coming. If just one comes through, they might ignore it. They might not notice you. So part of the role of a scout is to surprise targets like that. And yeah, if you have 2 scouts going into a system at the same time, that starts to look a little more coordinated. Seeing 2 enemies in local chat, maybe there's something going on. Let me catch up on chat here. I see a lot of questions coming in, or a lot of discussion. What do you think about having a proper scout as your hunter and a DPS frigate doing +1? Yeah, you can definitely do things like that. If your +1 is just giving you intel, yeah, you could have anyone do that. It's a good spot to have like an interdictor going +1. We do that sometimes. You could have just one of your tankier or more knowledgeable DPS people do that. Yeah. Okay, I have some random notes for things that help out here. First one is the DScan filters. So when you are looking on DScan, you can set the same filters as your overview. You can set it to find wrecks, you can set it to find drones, you can set it to find ships, you can find all sorts of things. The preferred one I use, and that I've heard other scouts use, is the DScan Ships Defensive filter. This is part of the eUni overview. If you have installed the eUni overview, you will have this filter. The Ships Defensive one gives you a bit more. I don't like using the drones, and the offensive one doesn't have quite as much on it. The one thing I would say that you have to change, though, is on that defensive filter, go into the settings and add in force fields. A force field is a POS, you'll hear them called, the POS. They are out in space. They are big protective bubbles that usually have auto shooting guns on them. And lots of times people will just leave their fancy expensive ships sitting inside of a force field. Sometimes they won't even be online. You'll just go into a system and see a bunch. If you're a Unista that lives near Stackman, you can go into Austingale next door. Careful, the gate's normally camped. But you can go into Austingale, and if you check, there's a POS in there that always has like 20 ships in it. So you'll see 3 people on local, but 20 ships on DScan. So you want to make sure that you have force fields on your overview, because as a hunter, it gets very annoying when you see something beautiful that you want to go and tackle, and then you realize it's in a POS. We've had many times in fleets where somebody will be scouting, and they'll say, "Oh, I have a golem here. I have a golem on DScan. I'm going to warp to this golem." And we're all getting excited. Yeah, let's go kill a golem. And then they say, "Oh, the golem is in this big bubble. I can't get to it. I just got shot by guns. Oh, I'm dead." That's a POS. So you want force fields on your DScan so that you can see if something is in a force field or not when you're scanning around. I don't have it on the slide, but optionally you can also add abyssal traces. If you have a combat prober with you and your fleet is okay hanging out, it can be useful having an abyssal trace on your DScan so that if you see one of those, you can go and camp that. On the fleet last night, we almost caught a Stormbringer that way if we were just about 30 seconds quicker, for example. Other people have other things as well. I know when I've seen Francie Scout, he has gates on his. So when he's descanning things, he can see if they're in line with gates and such. Uh, yeah, this is something you can personalize. I'm just saying my recommendation to start is use the ship's defensive and then add in force fields because the POSes, so many letdowns from POSes. When you are looking for where people are, you can check how many people are in a structure by looking at it in space. So when you look at a structure in space, you will see a number in square brackets. The number in square brackets is how many people are currently docked online in that structure. This is useful intel if you really are deep searching a system. If your FC really wants to know about a system and you're saying, okay, there's 3 people in local, I can't find them. You can warp to a structure at range and you can look and see if there are people in it. Honestly, it's a little slow to do this, to like go and check each structure. Normally I prioritize moving on to new systems if I can't find people, but this is something you might want to do. This is also important if there's an enemy near the structure that you're thinking of tackling, right? If you look at a structure and you see there are people docked in it right now, and there's an enemy that's close to it that you want to fight, you might start getting targeted by the structure while you're fighting them. So that's not something you want to do. And yes, these screenshots are of 2 structures that no longer exist. These were back down in our Nullsec campus before. But yeah, as you can see, the one on the left, nobody's in that structure. One on the right, there's one person. I know for our WHC members here, too, this is a big thing that gets pinged a lot in WHC is do not idle in structure because enemies do check that to see how many people are around that might come fight. In Nullsec, people idle in structures. If you're living in a wormhole, it's generally considered bad manners to idle in a structure. Dotlan. So I talked a little bit about Dotlan. Dotlan is a mapping tool that we use. It's a third-party one. We use it generally to check for where activity is happening. The most common one people use is the NPC kills delta. This shows the difference in kills of NPCs in the last 2-hour period compared to the 2 hours before it. So basically, if there has been more ratting happening in the last 2 hours than 4 hours ago, then it's going to be green. If it's red, that means there's less ratting recently than there was 4 hours ago. This is a very imperfect system. This gives us an idea where action is happening, but this information is out of date. People move on. It's not great, but it's an option. It's what we use. Like I said, you can also use Zkill. You can look where kills are happening there. You can use the in-game map to see pilots in space. But generally, as a scout, it's good to have Dotlan for routing as a whole. So in this case, I want to imagine a situation where we've taken a filament and we have landed in this white highlighted system, AZBR. We land here, our FC has pulled up Dotlan, and they say, ooh, there's a green system over there, TTAC-Z, let's go to that. So the FC says, okay, fleet, set your destination to TTAC-Z. So we're going to go from AZ and we'll go over to TTAC-Z. As a scout, you can look at this and say, hey, OMV is just one jump off the route and that's got some green. So as a scout, if this was me, I would go TVN and then I would go OMV and then TTAC-G. So this way, you are covering an extra system that's off the route, but there's a good chance you'll find a target in there. Same thing, I might go into ZAO and then CTAC-F, just because they're kind of on the route. I might take the long way. As a scout, you're in a faster ship, so you can generally make better speed than your scout or your fleet, unless you're in an FLF fleet, because they move very quick. Yeah, other than that, blue means there's ice belts. So yeah, it's always worth, if you see on Dotlan or Evi that a system has ice belts in it, that's always worth an extra look when you're going, that you check the ice belts as well as the combat sites. Normally you'll find enemies in havens if they're routing, but ice belts are useful for miners. Other than that, our final points and pointers. Communication. Big one is communication as a whole. You are out as a scout, your job is to provide intel. You're going to be telling intel to the FC, so you need to be communicating. You need to just tell them what's going on. Tell them if you see enemies. Tell them if a system is clear. Need to be relaying that intel. Feel free to interrupt people. Lots of times on fleets, people just start chatting. People are having a good time. They're chit-chatting away. As a scout, you take priority over them. That's right. As a scout, you are special. You get to tell other people to shut up, politely or not, when you're saying your check. You'd say, hey guys, that's a great story you're telling, but stop telling it because I have important information to tell you. Check. So something you need to get used to there. Again, repeat your name and where you are. It is frustrating if you just say, hey, I've tackled an Ishtar, come kill it. And then your FC goes, oh, who are you and where are you? Which system are you in? Generally, as a scout, if I am in warp to an enemy, I will try to link the system in fleet chat to let people know. I will say, hey, Tomlin is in warp to an Ishtar in Slays, and I'll drag the Slays name into fleet chat. Speed is key. Eve might be a slow-moving game, but when you're scouting, you need to be quick. Once you're in a system, it is only a matter of time until the enemies are going to notice that you're there and they're going to get safe. We are combating so many things as a scout. There are intel channels. There are great intel networks that these nullsec groups have where they share information. Sometimes you'll see them share it in local accidentally, and they'll talk about you. But yeah, you'll see it. When we had nullsec campus going more actively, we had solid intel there, and we would be relaying, okay, there's one enemy in the pocket, they're in this system, they're jumping to this system. Yeah. So intel channels, big thing. We're combating that. As a scout, you need to move quick because they know where you are and they're reporting you on those. Eve is all players, right? There are no bots in Eve. Every single person you see logged in is a real player behind a keyboard. Yes, 100%. Yes, No. There are bots out there. There are bots that are just sitting there spinning their Ishtars in nullsec. Some areas have more obvious bots than others, but yes, there are systems you go to where as soon as you enter local, all the Ishtars are already aligning and warping to a structure. And as soon as you've been out of local for 10 seconds, they are warping back to that same haven, like clockwork. This happens. It happens all the time. It's frustrating. You can try and do weird stuff with bubble to catch them, but as a whole, there's no great way to combat the bots other than a lot of work and setup. As a scout, we are relying on people making mistakes. If everybody is playing the game 100% perfectly, then you're never going to catch anything that doesn't want to be caught. As a scout, we are relying on people being asleep or people not paying attention, on people that maybe they're triple boxing and they don't notice that you're in warp right now to their Ishtar, Or maybe they've got their mining fleet out and their orca just turned on their core as you enter local because they weren't watching intel. Key thing here is just you need to temper your expectations and don't feel bad if you miss a lot of targets because they're just doing what they're good at. They're playing safely. You will catch people, but most of them are people who have made some kind of mistake. I see a question, what is triple boxing? By that, I mean they're playing 3 accounts at once. So they might have 3 different characters that they're playing at the same time. Maybe they're out on a fleet on one of their screens and their other 2 screens are just mining at home. Third-party tools I talked about earlier can be helpful. Killboards tell you where fights are happening. So yeah, if you look on Zkill and you check around you, you just pull up the region. Okay, I'm going to pull up the forge and I'll see where people are fighting in the forge kind of thing. Maps, very useful. Like I said, Dotlan. Dotlan helps you plan routes more, helps you figure out neighboring systems that you can check out. Evi, similar there. You can also use some tools I have not talked about here yet, dscan and local threat. These are both very useful. So dscan.info is one where you copy your dscan window, you paste it into dscan.info, and it will give you a link that you can send to your fleet that shows exactly what's on dscan. So this is very good if you see an enemy fleet. If you jump into a system and there's like 30 ships there, you're like, oh no. You copy your dscan, you put it into dscan info, and you send your FC that link, and your FC can say, okay, I can see this summary. There are 10 of these, there are 5 of these, that's who's there. So dscan info, very useful when you find a fleet. Similar one there is local threat. Local threat is good more for looking at the pilots in local. It will quickly pull up who is in what corp. It will pull up how dangerous their Z-kill is and how likely they are to be solo or in a group. Let's see, a couple more questions here. Do I have any other ways to practice? Yes, I'm gonna go through a demo that'll cover some of it. But yes, manual piloting is something that it's a skill you have to learn. We could do some demos on it. I think Zero actually was talking about doing a manual piloting demo one of these days, bringing that in. But yes, manual piloting, we do have another short video of that in the PvP study channel. I think it's just like a 3-minute video from Clarities. But that's something that does take a little bit to figure out. Okay. Other than that, yeah, when you're getting ready to scout, you can always talk to the FC in advance. When I schedule a fleet as an FC, if someone reaches out to me and says, hey, I want to scout on your fleet, I am pumped because that is always the worst part of FCing is trying to find scouts at the start of a fleet because we never have enough scouts. So if people reach out to me in advance and say, hey, I want to scout, what can I do? I would be like, yes, perfect. Hardest part of my day is done. It's all going to get easier from here. Yeah, you can talk to the FC about what sort of ship do you want me to scout? You know, what could I bring? The what route doesn't really matter if we're doing nullsec filaments, but that might matter more other places. Having reships is very useful as a scout. So as a scout, you do die more than the fleet normally. There will be times you tackle something and you die before the fleet comes to save you. There will be times you jump into a trap that you can't escape. It happens. If you're good, you might be able to escape some of it. Sometimes you might die less, but as a learning scout, expect to die a lot. You can usually get your pod out though, so it can be good to have reships around. I try to make sure to always have a couple extra maledictions sitting in Thera, and I've got a bunch in Pochvin. There's one point on my Z-kill where you can find where I lost 3 maledictions within 30 minutes because I kept reshipping because I had ones nearby. That was not a proud moment. I died way too much in that time, but I had these ships nearby so that I could easily reship. Those are both useful spots for it. Another little point I didn't talk about earlier was overheating. If you overheat your tackle modules, you get more range on them. So if your point, you can see in this example for the screenshot, this person's skills, their point is 22 kilometers, but if they overheat it, it's actually 26. So they get that extra range. When I am landing on something, I usually start with my point overheated. I try, because lots of times when you land on an enemy, you might be 40 kilometers off. So you land on grid, they are spamming warp out as you're landing. So you have to get on top of them and tackle them as quick as you can. So that extra 4 kilometers range, that can be make or break. I would definitely make sure that you turn it off after so you don't burn it out though. So that's a key thing. You turn it on, you get the tackle, you get within that 22 kilometers, and then you stop overheating. Yeah, a lot of things to manage as a scout. Bit more. If you are curious to learn how to scout too, I would recommend go on Fleets' DPS and listen. Listen to the scouts and the FC. Listen to how they talk. Listen to what's going on. A lot of it you can pick up just by copying them. You hear them say what they're doing. You hear them describing it all. As they're doing that, pull up Dotlan on another window or Alt Tab and check it out quick while you're sitting there waiting on a gate, and just kind of picture what's going on. Depending, you might have some scouts that are willing to stream as well. Sometimes I stream here in Discord when I scout, sometimes not. It does. Uni in Discord is very open, so if the enemies living in that area knew that we were streaming, they could come watch. I doubt it would happen, honestly, but it's a little thing. Yeah, being a second scout to an experienced scout is a great way to learn as well. So if you want to try scouting, find a fleet. Find a fleet that's got a good scout going already, and just ask if you can be the second or third scout behind them and copy them and go along. Great to do. After a few systems, you can try taking over. Lots of experienced scouts will do this. Like if I'm out and I'm trying to help someone new, I'll say, okay, maybe you go check that system, and I'll wait, and you check it first. Yuri is really good for this. I know Yuri doesn't fly in this time zone that most of you are in right now here, but Yuri's fleets, he always tries to get new scouts to check out systems first at times. So Yuri's a great FC to fly with if you are a new scout that's learning. Final kind of message here. So scouting doesn't take a lot of in-game skills. It doesn't take a lot there. You can do it with a pretty new character. And it's exciting. Scouting is a lot more exciting and thrilling than flying as a DPS member. There's a lot more going on. Scouts are needed. It's exciting. It's a good time. It's something that you should give a try to. I have one more kind of quote here I want to end with. This is something I mentioned a few times already. You are relying on other people to make mistakes. You can play perfectly as a scout. You could be the world's best scout, and there will be times that you don't catch a single thing. And that is perfectly okay. Don't feel bad. If you land on Ishtars as they're warping off, if you almost catch a Praxis, if you get caught on the wrong side of a gate with an enemy, these things happen. It's not always going to be your fault. You can play perfectly, and sometimes it just doesn't work. Okay, I think that's the end of the slides. Okay, let's do a few minutes of Q&A if people have questions, and then we will switch over to the in-game demo. I know we've had people asking questions as I go, but yeah, if anyone wants to has any questions, again, you can put them in chat or you can come off mute and say them. Is it a good or bad idea to have roaming scouts at a greater distance than +1? That's a good question. If you only have one scout, you might want to keep them just +1, depending on your fleet. If you have multiple scouts, I would definitely have somebody going +2. I would recommend that. If you are in fast ships, like if you're flying the FLFs, you could go +2 anyways, even with one scout. Generally, you don't want your scouts too far from the fleet just for the time's sake. Like if you have a scout that's 5 jumps away and they tackle something, it might take your fleet 2 or 3 minutes to get to them. And depending on what it is, that thing might have killed your scout by the time you get there. A question, did we cover point versus scram? Yes, yeah, we did that back near the beginning. I can quickly go back to that. Yeah, I need to give these slides a pass over. There was point versus scram. Yeah. So again, points, you must have the point. Point stops things from warping. Scram is also good to have because Scram will catch your bigger targets that have micro jump drives. Scrams will slow down faster targets that have micro warp drives, and Scrams will, yeah, they can catch targets that have a warp core stabilizer. But as a whole, a point is the more priority. Let's see some questions here. Do we always warp at 0 to potential targets? So personally, I do when I am scouting in a interceptor. Uh, you don't know what angle people come from. When you are landing at a site, lots of times you'll find that the ship is 30 or 40 kilometers from the warp in. Ishtars like to drop their bots and then get away from the warp in spot. So if you knew in advance what side they were on, you could warp at range, but you can't really tell until you're on grid. So I like to warp at 0 just to be there. If it's a Blops fleet, I didn't talk about Blops fleets yet, but if you're hunting in a Blops fleet, it's very similar to this, other than the fact that you're cloaky and you have a Sino. If you're hunting in a Blops fleet, I usually warp at a range of 20, just so I don't get decloaked by things when I land. That's going to vary. Question about transitioning from scouting to FCing. Well, you could attend the Intro to FCing class from last week or watch the recording. But yeah, it's just a comfort thing when you feel you're ready. There's no formal requirements to scout or FC in the uni. If you feel that you are ready to try scouting, you can scout. If you feel you're ready to try FCing, you can FC. hmm Yeah. Raven speaking up here. Yeah. Raven attended the Intro to FCing class last week, and then right after that went out and FC'd his first fleet immediately after. It was wonderful. And I mean immediately after. Like the class ended, and I said, let's do a fleet. And he said, I'll do it. It was beautiful. I guess that was 2 weeks ago now. Okay, any other questions? Are we wanting to see some in-game stuff? Oh, I see several people typing, so I'm going to drink some coffee. Yes, there's a great point in there from Amphion. As a whole, with anything, some of the best ways to learn are just to do it, especially with the uni's generous SRP and with how cheap condors are. If you're curious to try it, get in a condor, go on a fleet. Condor costs like 5 million, and you'll probably get all of that back in SRP, I imagine. Give it a try. Same thing with FCing. You want to try FCing? Take out some Merlins. Merlins are cheap. SRP will cover it. There's a question. When will we have a scouting channel on Discord? Oh, well, we used to have one. We used to have study groups, and that is where that recording from Clarities comes from, is when he was our study group lead for scouting. Also, that skill plan. If you check that scouting skill plan, it says study group. That is from an older days when we had that. I don't know what the future holds for study groups. They were retired for a bit, but they might be coming back. Who knows? There's a lot of changes happening in the uni right now, so who knows what the future will hold there. Yeah, as a whole, the study groups were a great idea, and there was some activity in them, but they all kind of petered out, and there go weeks with not a single message sent in the Discord channel or events happening. Okay, I'm seeing more chatter and less questions. Yeah, let's move to the in-game stuff. Okay. So I normally like to do this in the Condor, but I figured I wanted to live a bit longer today. Condors die, so I figured I'd go a bit pricier with a malediction. Okay, I am in Jita. I'm going to take a filament out and whelp it. Let me see here. I will get to make sure I have chat up still if people need there. Oh yes, my nice green skin there on here. Okay, a few things to go over before I undock. Just the ship fitting. Like I said, I fly a malediction for scouting. I like to add in a core probe launcher and just offline it in the high slots. This is something that I use for getting out of Pochven mainly. So when we finish a fleet, we go through Pochven, and it's way quicker to scan a wormhole out of Pochven and way more reliable than waiting for a filament. So that's why I like to have that there. The nullifier is what makes you immune to bubbles when you use it before you warp into a bubble. Some scouts actually keep their nullifier offline as well because it might affect your lock speed, I believe it is, targeting range. Yeah. So yeah, you see my targeting range is 46 with the nullifier on. If I offline it, my targeting range goes up to 51. So you will see some very experienced scouts might keep their nullifier offline and then they'll just online it when they find a target or when they see a bubble that they need it for. I can't be bothered. I will take the risk. I'll leave that online. I've got the micro warp drive, I've got the point, got the scram. As you can see, my point has a 29-kilometer range. I have interceptors 4. I don't have interceptors 5 trained yet. 5 would make it over 30. Like I was talking about earlier with overheating as well. So if I overheat it, it goes up to 35 kilometers. So I can point at 35 kilometers with that overheated. It just might burn out, so I just do that while I'm burning in. Same thing, my scram is 11 kilometers, overheated 13 kilometers. Not something I'm going to try and overheat often, but something there. Yeah, other than that, we do have a little bit of tank here. We have an armor repair. You just load nanite repair paste into that like ammo and use that out there. Okay, so I'm going to form a fleet just for myself because you need to be in a fleet to use a filament. So here's my fleet of 1. Quick undock check. I'm pretty sure I'm in a clean clone. Yes, clean clone, no implants. I did go scouting yesterday on my +5s, but thankfully I didn't die. Check that my ship's repaired, make sure it's all good. Repaired there. Pretty sure I insured this earlier. Yeah, it has insurance. Inside, I make sure I have some filaments. Yeah, I have my filament kit at home, I got my signals, and I've got some paste. Wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to get out in space here. Let's see, any questions before I do that? Oh, questions about the fitting. There you go. Yeah, someone linked the fitting for you there. Yeah, I died in one of these last night. So if you check my Z-kill, the most recent activity should be me dying in the malediction with this fit as well. I tackled a Proteus. That was a mistake. Some ships, just not good to tackle. Combat interceptors like a Crusader, tackling them, they'll usually kill you. T3Cs, tackling them, they'll usually kill you. There's some things that are just painful for that. Okay, so I'm going out to scout. I've done my undock checks. I don't have a watch list because, well, it's just me. I've got everything I need. I have Dotlan ready on my second screen. Yeah, let's get out of here. I do change my UI a bit usually when I'm scouting. I try to change the size of things and difference. I'll talk about that as we do it. First thing, I'm going to get off grid since we are in JITA here. Okay, set up your buttons how you like. Again, I have the probes offline. I have my nullifier. When I scout, I have my system map open. I do this so I can see clusters where things are to better see my D-scan range. The first couple times I scouted, I didn't do this, and it was okay. I still caught stuff, but it gets confusing at times when you start seeing different ranges and you're not sure what's where. So it's good to have the map open there. If you watch Revenged Avengi's video for Bomber's Bar hunting, when he scouts, he puts his map covering a bunch of his UI. Like he'll have his map like this so he can really see. I personally, I don't want to make it that big. I like being able to see other stuff, so I try and have it here. Key other things, we have our probe scanner window and our D-scan, and we have local chat in a separate window from our other chat. These are the key things I want to see. Let's see, there's some questions. Yeah, advanced SRP. Yeah, all tackle fits should get you advanced SRP even if they're not part of the doctrine. So if you are flying a bubbler or a scout, so an interceptor or interdictor in any kind of fleet, you will get the higher level of SRP. Yeah, so you can go on a shield fleet and you can fly an armor scouting ship. That's fine. I know like in a shield fleet, we will generally try to have only people with shield ships. But as the scout, you don't have a whole lot of shield or armor anyways, so it doesn't really matter there. Yeah, pretty squishy here, like I said. Okay. So I'm gonna head out into null here. I'm gonna take a filament. I'm gonna take a signal filament. So we're gonna land somewhere spicy right away, hopefully. So when we take a filament and we land somewhere, my first thing is always just to hunt that system right away. Because lots of times when we take a signal filament, we land in a system where there is some ratting or mining going on. So there's a chance I could see an Ishtar right away or an Orca or something like that. Generally, I don't even look at what region I'm in until I've checked the system. So my eyes, as soon as I take this filament, my eyes are going to go to local chat and to DScan to see what I can find. Once I have an idea, then I will change my DScan around. And yeah, that is about that. I'm going to take one drink of water because I've been talking for like an hour and 20 minutes nonstop here, and then we'll do this. Okay, so let's take a signal filament, see where we go. Okay, so right away I see 6 people in local. DScan hasn't loaded, but I know there'll be 6 people around. And DScan, oh look at that, bunch of Ishtars and a Hulk out. Okay, so there's a lot of sites here. There's a lot. So I'm going to check the ore sites first because I want that Hulk. So I'm going to go for the ore sites. Oh, look at that, sacrilege in that one. So I'm going to warp to this bit stop right here. Hopefully it's there. We'll see if the sacrilege is there or not too. As I'm going, I'm going to pre-overheat my point so it gets that extra range when I land. We'll see. Is it still there? Oh, the sacrilege is here. Okay, well, I'm going to tackle the sacrilege for the hell of it. This might not end well. Oh, and he's off, yeah. So as you can see, he was already aligned. I did not have my micro warp drive ready because he was within 24, but he got off quick. Okay, let's check these Ishtars. There's so many sites, so I go under 10. Okay, 2 Ishtars still under 10. I go 5. Okay, 1 Ishtar within 5, but a force field. So I know there's 1 Ishtar between 5 and 10. So I'm going to look between 5 and 10 for a haven. Okay, not at that haven. Ishtars are normally in havens. I'm going to check these other sites though. Maybe? Oh, look, he's in that Forsaken. So I'm in warp to this Forsaken. So I say, oh, FC, Tomlin in warp to an Ishtar in the KNZ signature. I have been in this system now for, what, 1 minute? I would assume that they're awake. I would assume that that person in local, that Sacrilege and Hulk, already said, hey, get off. But you never know. Oh, look, he's here. Look at that. And look at that. He's within scram range. This is a little dangerous. I don't want to be within scram range. Okay, point Ishtar. Look at that. Just like that, I have an Ishtar. I am burning away, though, because lots of times there are bait Ishtars that will actually tackle you back. So I'm going to try and get about 20 kilometers off this Ishtar. I'm going to drop my scram here. Okay, rats are shooting me. That's okay. Yes. I want to get away from this Ishtar. Make sure I'm about 20. Again, I'm manual piloting. I'm just clicking down in space, and I'm watching his velocity. He's got 0 velocity. So realistically, right now, since he's not moving, I could just orbit 20 with my micro warp drive on. I could say, okay, fleet, wisp, warp to Tomlin. I'm here. I've got this Ishtar. Come to me. Come to me. Ba, ba, ba. Yeah, I took a signal filament, so this brought us to a busy system. Again, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Okay, I'm in Gemini. See, this Ishtar is so asleep. He's got 0 velocity. Oh, he is calling his drones back in. Okay, this is a part I want to talk about. Oh, he's just going to finish the site. So he has wasps out right now. When you are in a malediction and you are micro warp driving at this range, generally you are not at risk from bigger drones. So if he was using Praetors or something like that, I wouldn't worry. Watch the drones. If he switches to warriors, so if he pulls in these drones and warriors come out, warriors can catch you with your micro warp drive on. So warriors are when you have to worry. Drones, I'm looking at them in space and I just hovered over them. You can also use the drones overview tab. Yeah, this guy is either just a bot or he just doesn't care that I'm here. You see, he's not even trying to get away. He's just going to keep going. Yeah. I'm not going to say anything. It's Azure. Okay, that's enough of that. Nothing more to be learned from this one. So let's get off here and we're going to try and go into some new systems. So I'm going to just warp. Oh, look, he's yellow boxing me. He woke up. I'm going to warp off to a skyhook. I like using skyhooks to bounce to. As I go, I'll make a quick safe along the way because it's going to take me a second to do this next step. Yes, I have it set up so I normally try and have all brackets visible in space. And then I also have that special setting so that you can see names of people as well. Okay, so as I was warping, I hit Control B mid-warp there, and I hit submit, so that made a random safe. So this is going to be a spot that people can't warp to by themselves. Oh, if you notice, when I got in local here, I pressed Control A in local, and I highlighted everybody, but this star area is not highlighted. So we know that's someone new. They weren't here when I came in. If I was less distracted, I would have just said +1. We have this +1 here. Okay, I am on a safe now. Until they start combat probing me, I am not at risk. So I'm just going to get myself aligned to something. I'm going to turn on my micro warp drive. I'm going to catch my breath, and I'm going to switch over to Dotlan now. So if I switch here, I have my Dotlan window up. Okay, so I am in Geminate. So I'm going to go to Geminate. You can search the exact system you're in up here. Sometimes I do that. Sometimes I'm lazy and I just go to there. Whoop. I type in Control F for TZL. Where am I? Where am I? TZL. So I am right here. I am down in this pocket in the lower left. If I look, we can see there's some stuff going on. We can see there's some ratting over here. I believe these colors means there's some iHub stuff going on even. We can see I'm in a dead end system as well, right next door, 4KO. Because 4KO is a dead end, I might go into there anyways. The 0 means there's no change in routing delta. But again, that information could be up to an hour out of date. It could be wrong. It's a dead end. I'm here. I may as well check that. Afterwards, I'm going to go through and I'm going to check LR attack. That's got ice. That's got delta. I'll check these. So I'm going to transition back to game now. Back over here. By the way, it's a lot harder for me to see Discord chat now too. So if anyone does have any questions, you can speak up verbally, or you can DM me in game, I guess. Yes, you can also use the in-game map to check pilots in space to have an idea. So I could pull this up in advance and I could see 4K, oh, 2 pilots in system in the last 30 minutes. So I might find something there. So I'm going to, oh, good call. Yes, thank you. I will repair that. Okay, so I'm going to jump this gate and I'm going to walk you through exactly how I would say it if I was FC or if I was scouting with a new FC. I'll verbalize it all as we go here. So say, okay, Tomlin is jumping into 4KN. Oh, we own it, or nobody in local. So yeah. So this is a dead end system. Like I said, no delta, but we came. As you see here, there are 3 ships on D-scan. Like I mentioned earlier, if you have force fields on, you will see there is a POS. So yeah, those 3, or the 2 corvettes and the shuttle, those are all just sitting in the POS there. Okay, let's go back. I will do it this time. Even though I was just in TZL, we'll pretend I wasn't here, and we'll do this like it's a new system. Oh, look at that. Oh, someone came behind me. I'm being hunted. Let's hold here. Let's see what it is. I'm not going to repair that heat damage because I want to see what this is. So I would say, oh, +1 4K. Oh, I've had a gate flash. I'm going to wait and see. Another thing about scouting, you just like FCing, you need to be very aware of gate aggression. Okay, yeah, it's a shuttle. So I'd say, okay, the +1 was a shuttle. Never mind. You have to be very careful tackling things on gates because if you tackle something on a gate, it can just jump through the gate and get away from you. So when I'm scouting, if I find an enemy on a gate, I will sit here and I will lock up the enemy and we will stare at each other. But I am just waiting for them to shoot me first because that means they can't jump the gate. You do not want to be the first person to aggress on a gate generally, unless you have the other side bubbled. Tackle. I think it can vary. Yeah. It's. I'm never quite sure what's optimal there. Ooh. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, look at this. They brought a flycatcher. Judging by that name, that is with that person. Okay, so this flycatcher is trying to bubble me in. That's okay. We're not in any worry. I am in a bubble, yes. But I am at the edge of the bubble. And if we look, there are things right out there. So I can get away from this guy pretty quick. He's 15K, I'm off. Also, I have a nullifier, yes. So I can go cheese mode. I can just activate my nullifier and warp out anyways. I'm going to try and do this without the nullifier though, just to make it more authentic for people scouting something smaller. You can preheat your micro warp drive to make it work. So I'm going to go to, let's say, that horde, because that's close. So I'm going to go there, align to it, heat the micro warp drive. We'll see if he gets me. No, he does not in time, and I'm off. I could have also used the nullifier to get out of there, but you don't always need it. Okay. So I know that was Staria as well, so I'm going to put them there. I like to put little notes for myself of pilots and what they're flying if I'm being hunted. Okay. So now we know that we're being hunted. We're going to check the LR gate. So I'm going to quickly descan it first to make sure that he is not on the LR gate. Nope. Sacrilege is over there, but not him. So I'm going to the LR gate. Got another +1 in local, Rainbow Dash. Let's see. I will get into LR and I will hunt LR, we'll say. Okay. He might show up behind me. I'm nullified, so no big deal. Okay, Tomlin jumping LR tack. LR tack, 3 in local. Capsule on D, nothing else. Okay, so I know there's 2 people in local. There's a bunch of stuff near the sun there. So I'm just going to pick a random site near the sun to go to. I'm going to go to a den because I don't see a haven right away. There is an ice belt in this system, actually, so I could have warped to the ice right away. I know this green sphere is my D-scan range, so I can see as I get here, I can D-scan everything. Okay, look at that. Got an Ishtar on scan. Wonderful. Let's shorten it down. Ishtar's within 5. Ishtar's within 5, yeah. Is Ishtar within 1 even? Ishtar is not within 1, so they're between 5 and 1. So now I'm going to start scanning between 5 and 1. There's a bunch of sites between 5 and 1. Oh, havens. They're usually in havens. There we go. So I'm going to warp to Vianney. Okay, FC Tomlin in warp to a Ishtar in LR tack. Oh, there's a Hippler Zero in local. Look at that. Hey, Hippler. Look at that. You want to come kill this Ishtar with me? Totally not blue to you? Okay. Like I said, most of the time, these Ishtars will be awake and they'll get off. So you can see there are wrecks here. There is cargo. This Ishtar saw me coming. I was not quick enough. Maybe if I descanned him a bit quicker, I could have found him, but maybe he was just paying attention to local. You never know. Don't feel bad. You will warp to 10 Ishtars and you might manage to catch 2 of them. It's no big deal. I got very lucky with that first one being asleep when I got there. Most of the time they're not asleep. Okay, I need to check Dotlan. I'm going into that pocket I said, so I'm going to go to BTAC-F. I'm giving this intel to Hipla there. Oh yeah, I need to repair this since it canceled. But yeah, again, yeah, and that's something you want to move quick when you first land because you're not on intel. So I saw a malediction on D-scan named Tackle Me there that was coming, so I'm assuming. Okay, I could say, okay, FC Tomlin into BTAC-F, 2 in local, capsule on D-scan. Oh, -1. So I can see this capsule is 9 TAC A. So I know there's nothing to hunt in here, and there's just Hipla here with his own malediction here. With other maledictions, it's tricky, right? Because he's fast. So if I just point him, he could still get out of my point range. And like I mentioned earlier, either one of us could hop the gate. So I'm going to just block him up. We're going to have this yellow box stare down. Hipla and I have each other. Yellow box. Oh, he aggressed me. Look at that. So I can just go and jump the gate and get away from Hipla. Hipla, I hit orbit 500 on the gate because I know if Hipla loves anything, it's orbiting gates at 500. I could have tackled him back there, but then I would have had a combat timer. Now, I'm on this side of the gate, and I know Hipla is stuck on that side of the gate for the next 50 seconds or so. So I'm safe. I can get out of here. I can go the other way. So I'm not going to check that pocket because Hipla's hunting me there. So I'm going to go to Y93. If we look back at Dotlan very quick, I'll switch the view. So I was going to go south, but because I was being hunted to the south, I'm just going to go north. So I'm going to head up to Y93. I would ask the FC for a desto at this point. I might head over to that YTAC or that VTAC M. That's looking kind of good. So I'm going to go to VTAC M. So I know there's all sorts of fancy ways you can get systems better, but I just typed the first few letters in there. Okay, so again, I will say this as if I am a scout with a new FC. Tomlin jumping into a YN3, 2 in local, nothing on D from in-gate, big system. So I'm going to warp. Oh, I'm going to warp to something in the middle here. There's a bunch of ore sites in here. So I picked an ore site. Again, havens are generally the most popular. So havens are usually what I check for first, but I'm just picking something close. Look at that, we got an Ishtar on D. Okay, same thing. Bring it down to 5. Is he within 5? Oh, there's no sites under 1, so I don't need to bother that. Let's see, 3.6. Okay, so I know he's within between 3.6 and 4.5. So I can eliminate a bunch. Well, there's only one site there. And look, he's there. So what I'm doing, I'm setting my D-scan to 5 degrees. I'm holding V and I'm clicking on these sites. I'm going to preheat my point again. One of these days, it'll actually get repaired. But for now, I'm preheating it just in case he's far off when I land. Okay, there it is. Yep, 30 kilometers. So he's within point range. So I'm double clicking to break invuln. Going. Ishtar tackled. Okay, Tomlin has Ishtar tackled. That's the system. Warp to Tomlin. So same thing here. Now I'm going to try and keep around 40 kilometers. Sorry, not 40, 20 kilometers off of him. He's got me yellow boxed. He's got the wasps out. So wasps are kind of quick. If I turn on my micro warp drive and I manual pilot a bit, I can get some distance, but they still can hurt me a bit. As you see, I'm already taking some armor damage. I'm going to turn on my repper. I probably should have overheated it before I started it, but look at that. I'm already outranging his wasps. They're not quick enough. If he had warriors, I'd be more of a threat. Not so worried. Yeah, so now I'm just going to manual pilot around, trying to stick within roughly 20 kilometers here. Staying away from the drones. Yeah, the drones are kind of hitting me, but I got a little closer to them than I should have. Oh, see, I just got webbed. This Ishtar is a sneaky one. Oh, +1, a Hipla in local. Oh, okay. So I'm going to get off grid here because I see Hipla in local. I assume he's hunting me. So I'm going to get it away before he lands on me. By now, my fleet should have landed back too. Okay, so we've got 2 Ishtars so far. Let's see if we can find something else. There is an ice belt in the system, but there wasn't anything there. We're going to continue on. So I am now looking at going through this NBPH gate. This is more than 30 AU from me. There could be a bubble on that gate, right? Now I could activate my nullifier, and I could use my nullifier before I go and warp through a bubble. But I'm going to be lazy. I'm not going to use my nullifier, and we're going to do another little trick once I finish repping up here. It's all good, Hipla. I don't mind the chasing. I am going to reload my nanite paste, which is a little risky because this is a 1-minute reload, but I want to make sure that's fully reloaded for my next time I need it. Because this is an ancil, I'm also going to set auto reload to off. What that means is when I run out of paste in there, it will still keep trying to just use the repper by itself. It'll be less efficient, but I can still use it for a bit. It'll just take capacitor. Okay, so I want to exit through this MBPH gate. I am not within 14 AU of it. Nice thing you can do here in nullsec. These nullsec corps, they're so nice. They put these fortresses in line with these gates for us. So what I can do, I can just warp to this fortress, or this structure at 100. This will put me on grid with the gate, but not in a spot I get caught in a bubble. So if you think a gate might be camped, you can use their own structures as a ping to get around them. So I can see on D-scan right now, there's no bubble. I didn't have to worry. But I land here, and look, I'm safe. Oh, there's that Ishtar friend and Hipla there. But now I'm on grid with the gate. I can see there's no bubbles up, so I can just warp to the gate and go through it. I did see a Staria character come through local. They're not in here anymore, but the flycatcher might be on the other side of the gate. Let's see. Okay, so back to real scouting talk. Tomlin jumping NBPH. NBPH 1 in local. MTU on D-scan. Nothing else. Okay, so I see I have most of the system, but there's a few things out of range. There's 2 havens that are at 15 AU. So I'm going to warp to one of these at 0. We call this shotgunning. Shotgunning is when you warp to a site out of D-scan range just at 0 to try and land on something. Okay. As I get over here, I can D-scan. I can see there's nothing over here. So say, okay, FC, yeah. NBP 1 in local, but they're docked up. Space is clear. Again, I'm in D-scan range of the outgate, so I'm going to go to the outgate now. Are there any questions coming up in Discord chat? I haven't been looking. Yes, I have gotten very lucky to find these 2 Ishtars so quick. This is not always the norm. Lots of times you will warp to a dozen of them before you find one. Okay, Tomlin jumping L4X. 1 in local. Right away I control A. Okay, I've got a Praxis on D-scan. Okay, so, okay, Praxis is within 10. So I saw there were structures at 12.9, so I dropped it to 10 to see. So it's not at those, but there's a structure at 1400 on grid. It's not there. So I know it's within 10. Praxis within 5, not within 1. So I know it's between 5 and 1. I'm being a little slow here. Let's see. That was within 1. Let's see. Is that this haven? No. Is that a hub? Okay. No, so it's not at a haven. So I'm going to try and find the range more. So this Praxis is within 3.6, within 3.2. Okay, it's between 2.7 and then 3.2. Between 2.7 and 3. Let's see. Well, there's this site and this site. Okay, so I'm going there. So it's a lot of process of elimination. FC Tomlin in warp to a Praxis in B6. Or no, I'm in L46. Whoops. In warp to Praxis in L46. Okay, yeah, see, I was very slow descanning him because it took me so long to eliminate down where he was. So his Rex are here. He was here, but he's not here now. Oh, +1, L46. Okay, so yeah, that Praxis is gone. MTU still here. Honestly, when most ships warp away, I don't bother chasing them down. Assume that they warp to a safe, a pos, or a structure. I will say that does differ if you are looking at a porpoise, an orca, or a marauder, because they might have a combat timer still because they activated their cores. They might still have a combat timer. So you might find a porpoise on a structure that is untethered that you can tackle. For Praxis, I'm going to assume that he got tethered right away and there's nothing I can do. Yeah, he's off D. All right, he was the only one in here when I got in here. There's this +1 of Hungry Troll, but it's not like this +1 came in and started ratting. So I'm going to assume that the system is safe. I'm going to continue to my outgate. Again, outgate is more than 14 AU away though, so I'm going to be safe. I'm going to look. There's no structure near this one, but there is a moon and belts. So you know what? I'm just going to go to a random belt, warp at 100. Key thing to note too, when you land at a site and the thing's not there, get moving, because the rats will kill you. I have almost died to rats at a site a few times where I've landed and I just sit here descanning, not paying attention to the rats. It is very embarrassing to die to rats alone as a scout. Don't do that. Okay, so I'm in D-scan range of my outgate. There's nothing on D-scan. I know there's no bubble camp waiting for me. So I'm going to warp to the gate at 0. Take a look back at Discord. I don't see any questions, really. Oh, when you warp near a bubble, the game draws a line from the landing spot. Yeah, so if you're not in line with the bubble, you're okay, generally. Okay, let's do another one. Tomlin into B6 tack. B6 tack, 3 in local. Do that control A right away. 3 in local. I have a Falcon on D-scan. Okay, I know a Falcon is a Sino ship. Oh, and a Rhea, look at that. Okay, so this Falcon probably just Sinoed in that Rhea. I don't see a Sino on D-scan. Oh, +1 local though. Okay, so there's some activity happening in this system. There's only one site that's out of D-scan. I'm not going to try and catch a Falcon. I know the Falcon's not ratting. I know the Falcon is doing something, possibly trying to catch me. So I'm not going to mess around with that. But I'm going to go check that one site out of D-scan range. Oh, there were 2 sites over there too. So I'm going to check these sites just for the hell of it. I might find an Ishtar that's just doing his thing. Most likely not. Yeah, doesn't look like it. If I look back at Dotlan as well, B6 tack, this one had a little bit of ratting, but not a lot. It's the next system I'm more interested in. So I'm going to ignore this stuff and I'm going to move on into VTAC-M. If I had a fleet behind me, I would tell the fleet that there is a Rhea out in here, but I would assume that the Rhea is tethered already. I could descan it down to be sure. I'm not going to bother. Yeah, it's off. I'm going to check this one haven just in case, but I have been in system for 1 minute by now, so yeah. Anything that was ratting would be gone. Again, scouting is something where you have to be quick. It's something where the first 30 seconds when you're in the system are the make or break for a lot of it. Once fleets form and there's fleet fights happening, it's very different. But as a whole, it's very important at the start that you move quick. I'm going to check this next system and then maybe call it there. I don't know. We'll see. I'd like to show what you do if you get into a fleet fight, but of course, unless I third party something, I'm not going to find a fleet fight. All right, we'll do one more legit. So Tomlin jumping VTAC M. 1 in local VTAC M. Nothing on D-scan from ingate. It's a small system. Oh, there's one that's off. There's one den not in range. So I'm going to shotgun that den. I do see that there is a bubble up somewhere, though. You see that? The mobile large warp disruptor? So there is a bubble somewhere in system. So I know when I leave the system, I'm going to have to be careful. I'm assuming it'll be on the MTAC M gate. Okay. Yeah, and there's nothing at this. So I know this one person is not out here ratting. They might be camping that bubble in something stealthy, though. Okay. Let's look. I'm going to look back at Discord chat for a second here. I'm turning on my micro warp drive and I'm getting away from these rats, so they're not going to be able to seriously hurt me. Questions, questions, questions. I'm not trying to catch the Rhea, no. Okay. Anyone have anything else they're curious about scouting or any of this? I know what I've done is all pretty quick. I can do a few more jumps just to show it. I'm just gonna I'll refresh Dotlan just in case it might have updated. It has not. So in terms of selection of where to go from here, this is a bit of scouting, a bit of FCing decision as a whole too, is you take a look around and you see there's not really any delta down there. There's a bit up here. I could burn over here, I guess. That's 7, 8 jumps. I can check Veil of the Silent. Veil of the Silent, kind of quiet around where I'm looking to go. Okay. I have a combat timer, so I can't go to Potchman anyways. So I'm going to set this SV tac as my desto, and we're going to go towards that and see if we can get something going. Or I could just go to Jita. No, we'll go to SV tac. So again, I just am lazy. Oh, normally you need 3 letters to search a system in game, don't you? But SV, set desto. Question, important shortcuts useful to speed things up. Yeah, so I'm using my mouse scroll wheel in the range window a lot. So if you just hover your mouse cursor over the range on DScan and use your scroll wheel, it'll change it by small amounts there. There is another shortcut that you can change it by 5 and 10 just to jump. If you hover over here, so if you want to do big jumps, you just use your mouse wheel on the bar. If you want to do small jumps, you hold it over the number. For the angle, I do 5 and 10. I'm holding V each time, and I'm pressing V to do my full scans. Oh, we have a +1 in VTAC M. Other little things. You can go and check people's info out of game as well. So like I said with Zkill, so maybe this Dan guy just came in, and I want to see who this Dan guy is. So I go over to my browser window, and I go to Zkill. This is not my normal gaming browser, so I don't have Zkill bookmarked, but yeah, I can search this Dan, and I can see. Okay, Dan is only 20% dangerous. He mostly dies. So this Dan is probably not hunting me. This Dan guy is probably just here doing his own thing. So he's not a threat I need to worry about. That being said, this would be great disinformation. This could be a character that's set up to look non-threatening and catch me. You never know. People play mind games in Eve. You can't always take things at first glance there. But I would assume that this character is not hunting me. But you never know. Let's see what else. I said I normally don't go more than +1, but I'm further ahead. How many fleet jumps do you think you can survive in this ship? Yeah, I would try not to go more than 2 away from the fleet generally, unless we have other scouts closer. Lots of times I will wait on an outgate for the fleet to catch up. So I think this outgate was bubbled, right? I said I saw a bubble when I was looking earlier. So I'm gonna go to the skyhook, use that as a ping. Try from there. Yes, I do have multiple Pathfinders bookmarked in my browser as well there. No, that's just multiple ones. Da, da, da. Okay. So, oh, Aguila. Okay, so this Dan came out in Aguila. Is he on structure? Let's see. Okay, he's within 10. That Athnor is at 7.3, so I'm going to set my D-scan to 7.2 and 7.5. He is not on tether. Oh, okay, I'm going to hunt this Gila. So this Gila is between 7.5 and 10, I know already. So I'm going to check that Den. I'm going to check that Forsaken. Okay, he's not there. Okay, he might be in a belt. Maybe he's belt mining in a Gila. Let's try and find it a little more exact. What did I say? He's 7.5-ish? 7.9, 8.1. Oh, he might be moving. 8.3. Okay, he seems to be at 8.2 AU away. Okay, he's off. Yeah, that Gila is just warping around. Would have been fun to catch him, though. That'd be bold, you know. You go into local, you see a newt, and you just start ratting. Okay, so I want to see, is this mobile large warp disruptor on this gate? So I set my D-scan to 5 degrees. I click on the gate. It is not. So that bubble is somewhere else that's not on the gate. Don't know what it's doing. It's not on either gate, but okay. But yes, so I wouldn't try to get too far ahead of the fleet. I would try to stay usually within 2 jumps. If the fleet is far behind, lots of times I will just sit on an outgate like this. Oh, look, there's that Gila. It is landing at range. I'm going to burn out to it. He warped at range, not at 0. I am pointed by a rat. Okay, so I'm going to try and get him. This is where having my interdictor offline, my targeting range is a bit out. Yeah, okay. Burning 100 to catch him would have been tricky. I should have heated my micro warp drive earlier, but yeah. He's awake, obviously. He warped at 0 or at 100 to come check me. Turn off my overload so I don't burn any heat out. We'll let these rats bug me. I'm going to jump gate. Yes. So yeah, me V-clicking on different things and the camera pointing. Yeah, that's a very great point. Doesn't always. Oh, here we go. Okay, 17 in local. Okay, so Tomlin in MTAC-M, 17 in local. Nothing on D-scan from ImGate. Where could they be? So there might be a mining fleet, but generally a mining fleet won't be in a small Arcanor. That isn't a spot I'd expect to see a mining fleet. But with 17 people, like, that's not going to be 17 people in a haven. So I'm going to go to the Arcanor anyways. Yeah, okay, nobody's in the Arcanor. Nobody's in these far ones. So I have now seen the entire system on D-scan and nobody's out. So yeah, I would say MTAC-M, 17 in local, nothing visible in space, unless they're by the outgate. We see there's a Sino up at the outgate. Okay. So yes, there might be a camp on this outgate, or they might just be doing stuff. Let's go see them. Let's spook them. Again, I'm going to bounce off one of these structures, so I'm going to pick a random one and warp to it at 100. Let's see. So I start descanning as I get closer. Okay, yeah, it's a venture. So yeah, that's Sino. It's an industrial Sino, so it's lit by a venture. You can kill them if you want. It's not worth a combat timer. Okay, +2. I did not see if they were on our gate, but yeah, we've had +2 in this system since I've been here. +3 now. Oh, I see one of them is Dan. That was that Gila behind me, right? So because I see a name I recognize, I know that that Gila either reshipped or he's chasing me. Okay, let's go through the gate though. So I know that this gate's not bubbled. I'm going to warp to it. So I'll go in. Oh, same thing here. Tomlin jumping FDZ. Oh, Caracal and Kiki undocked. Okay, they might be chasing me. Okay, FDZ 21 in local. Got a noob ship on D-scan. That's it. But again, I'm far off, so let's go check. We'll check the medium Arcanor. We'll see if somebody's in it. Yeah, yeah, I might be being chased in that Caracal and Kiki now. Okay, I get out here and I see 2 shuttles on D-scan. Okay. But yes, so where I am now, all the green sites are within 14 AU. So I know there's nobody ratting or mining out in them. I'm not going to scan down a red site and try that. I'm just going to move on. So I would tell my FC, okay, FC, FDZ is clear, proceeding to MR4. It's within 14 AU. I can see there's no bubbles, so I'm just going to warp right to 0. Okay. Yeah, I'll do a few more of the callouts. I would like to find a fleet so that I could show you guys like local thread and dscan.info. Oh, okay. So as I was landing, there was a +1 and I saw a gate flash. So I'm going to hold here. We've had this +1, Darius. They're in something. Let's see what it is. The key thing about being at 0 on a gate is if I don't like what it is, I can jump gate and be away before they can get me. So if this is something scary, I can run away from it. And if it's something I want to fight, I can tackle it. Again, with gates though, oh, it's a shuttle. With gates, you don't want to be the first person to aggress at 0 on a gate because then they'll jump from you. Okay, so Tomlin into MR4, MR4, 2 in local. Got an Arazu on D. Oh, Arazu's on grid here, yeah. So I can see this Arazu is sitting right there. Arazus are a Sino ship, for those that don't know. So that is there to bring a drop in on something. I'm still going to go off, though, anyways. I'm not going to worry about an Arazu. It's on tether on the structure, so nothing I can do. I'm going to go check. There's a few ore sites near the middle. Maybe there's a random solo miner. Nope, nothing here. Yeah, they dropped 5 dreads on that fleet yesterday, I realized. When I checked the battle report, there was 5 dreads, not 4. We had 25 frigates, and they dropped 5 dreads on us. It's beautiful. Okay, so I know there's one other person in local I haven't seen, and I don't have eyes on my outgate again. This time, I'm not going to use attack. This time I'll use the nullifier. So the way the nullifier works is you have to use it before you click warp. The game calculates your landing as soon as you click that warp button. So I click this nullifier, and it's on for 10 seconds or so. I click warp, the nullifier's on, so even if there's a bubble, I'm going to go right through the bubble. No worries. I don't think there's a bubble here, but just in case, I have that up. Oh yeah, yeah, no bubble. But if there was a bubble, I would have flown right through it. Same thing, if you jump a gate and you come up in a bubble, you can use the nullifier and warp out from a bubble. You just have to activate the nullifier before you hit warp. Okay, Tomlin jumping SR tack. SR tack is empty. Nothing there. Where are we on Dotlan? I should check. Go back to that. Okay. So if I look on Dotlan here, I'm just going gate to gate as well because I know the system's empty. I'm being lazy. So yeah, I know I'm in SR tack, so I'm along that northern route now. I can see the next 2 systems have 0 delta, but there's an ice belt at no 1, so maybe I'll see something there. It's good to think about what you expect to see before you get into system a little. Like this system had 0 delta, next system has 0 delta, so I'm not expecting to see 20 people in here. I'm expecting quiet, but you never know. And look at that. Yeah, local empty. So again, I'm going to warp gate to gate. Again, too, you can check the map, the in-game map, and I can see where I'm going. So I can see 01. Yeah, there is nobody that's been in space in the last 30 minutes. It's looking quiet. One interesting thing that I noticed, if you watch Revenge videos, Revenge's way of doing it is he looks at the systems and he goes to, what is it, structures? He goes to one of these settings and he sees what the actual count is going up of activity in the system. Doesn't look like it's happening here. I don't know how he got that setting. I saw it yesterday, but now I can't find it, so disregard that. Tomlin jumping 01 tack. 01 tack, 2 in local. Nothing on D from ingate. There's a cluster at the sun. Ooh, there's ice. Let's check the ice belt first. Again, ice belts are popular. Okay, -1. So I know there's only one person in here now, too. Yeah, but maybe this one person is out here mining ice solo. Maybe. Nope. D-scan clear. I can see I'm within 14 AU of all the green sites. There's nothing else here. Oh, and -2. So that other person left as well. I didn't see them on D-scan, so I would assume they went to one of the other 2 gates. We'll see. Yeah, do you have to have the map open when you hit show info? Was that it? I see some talk in here. Yeah, like if I click show info with the map open, then do I see it? You see it. There's a spot you can see the activity level in a system. Show in map browser? No. I don't know. I don't do a whole lot with the in-game map, honestly. I just looked for pilots in space. Oh, this is ugly. Get rid of that. Okay, another call out. Tomlin jumping OEY. OEY, one in local. I recognize this name as that person that was in local last time. So they're traveling in front of me. So I'm not even going to bother checking any of these sites in the middle. There's a chance that might be an Ishtar or something that was getting to system, but I'm going to think it's maybe a shuttle. So I'm just going to go gate to gate. I'm going to risk it. I'm not even nullifying. I'm just going gate to gate. We'll see. Checking these in. Okay, they are not on this gate. So that person might have docked in system or they might be in something close. Ah, yeah, there's a heron. Yeah, so I'm not going to try and hunt and explore. Explorers aren't worth your time generally. Okay, Tomlin jumping 3-9 tack. Oh yeah, see, that heron is with me. I have no more combat timer though, so I'm not going to even try and tackle it because I don't want a combat timer. Oh, look at this. That's a Bomber's Bar hunter. Bomber's Bar hunting in here right now. Uh, yeah. Okay, I would definitely third party a BB drop if they see anything. Uh, so I'm gonna go check center. 4 in local, 3 in local. Okay, yeah. So I recognize those names: Ian, Blasterchan, Fabrizio, and the other Ian. Those are all Bombers Bar hunters. I recognize them just because I've been on BB fleets before, so I know that they're out hunting this area. Okay, so I got an Ishtar in D in center. Again, let's check at 10. There's a structure at 8.6. So I'm going to check 8.5 and see if he's at 8.5 to know if he's there or not. If I don't keep missing it. Oh, Megathron. Okay, Bomber's Bar has a wormhole in here that they're rolling. Okay, so that's what it is. Yes, these are Bomber's Bar's rolling fleet. So Bomber's Bar had a connection here. They were hunting this area, and that was their scouts coming home. These things you find. Okay, see, I'm going to shot by rats. I'm going to burn off. So that Ishtar, I could not find him at 8.5, but I saw him at like 9, so I'm pretty sure he's on tether at this Astra house. Bombers Bar are a nullsec group, or sorry, not purple shoot it group, NPSI community. They go out and anyone can join them and hunt big targets. You just sit in cloak bomber, they find things, they drop you onto them and you shoot them. We killed a wyvern yesterday. 70 billion ISK ship, super carrier. We killed one in Bomber's Bar. Yeah, I'm not gonna scan down the wormhole and try and hunt them. That's no. I'm gonna filament again. Let's see. Does anyone have anything more they want to see? Should I just filament? Oh, and you're 3 jumps away and you want to fight? Okay, fine. Oh, you want to come along with me? Okay, that Ishtar is on tether. We are not going to kill that Ishtar together. If Bomber's Bar has been hunting this region, you can assume that most things are going to be sitting on tether as well, because they're safed up. Okay, you can take the next filament with me, because I have a 5-person filament. Fine. Okay, we're going to take a noise, and I'm going to try and get Enyo killed in the next filament, everyone. We'll make this a little more interesting. I'll do one more signal then. Okay, I feel like I've been neglecting chat otherwise, though. Are there other questions coming in? I'm I'm covering so much, I feel like out here. Like I feel this might be a bit overwhelming to people. So I'm glad there's been some empty systems to walk through stuff. But yeah, if there's questions about anything I'm doing, feel free to ask. I know there's a lot going on. Yes, yes, that is it. So it's under sovereignty. Okay. Oh, am I an NPC? No, no, this is Solno. No. Yeah, so if you look at that, if you watched Revenge's hunting video, yeah, there's the sovereignty tab. So Revenge looks at these, and the military index usually means someone's ratting in there, and the industry index means somebody's mining in there based on these green or red arrows. I think it's at a big level though, because when Bombers Bar are hunting, they're hunting the dreads, they're hunting orcas, they're maybe getting marauders. when we're hunting on uni fleets, we'll take a Marauder, but we're usually not going for dreads at the same level. But yeah, so this military index with a green arrow, that means somebody's been ratting over there. If industry had a green arrow, it would mean somebody was mining. Yeah, so it's not super accurate, but I noticed that's what he uses to find targets. Mhm. Yeah, it's something I have never used myself until I watched his video 2 days ago, and then I started doing. If anyone has a link to that, they can put it in the chat. It's I can find it afterwards if not, but it's Revenge of Benji, who's one of Bomber's Bar Hunters, just showing what he does. Oh, I know you're here. Wonderful. Oh, you know what? I could have tackled one of those Megatrons. I have Bomber's Bar folder online here. I have their wormhole bookmarked. I should have tackled one of those. That will probably get me blacklisted from them. Okay, and let's we'll use their wormhole as a filament location. Take this warp. Yeah, no, what a coincidence though. You just find this group. If I hadn't taught this class today, I was going to go to that fleet. So it's interesting to see them there. Okay, and you don't have a combat timer, I hope. Yeah, okay. Yes, okay. We will see if we can find you an Ishtar. Here. Oh, break your invuln. I'm not hidden. There we go. Okay, so we are going off to new spot hunt. Again, first thing I'm looking at is local chat. So I see we have 5 in local. I see an Ishtar on D. Ishtar is within 10. Ishtar is within 5, so I'm going to check Havens within 5. Oh, there's one site within 5. It's not at that one site. Okay, so that Ishtar is not there. Where could that Ishtar be? Is it at the structure? Must be at the structure. It's within 1. Lame. Okay. We are in Malpays. I'm now going to check Dotlan. So I'm going to go back over to my Dotlan window. I will get that visible. So I'm going to show this time. I'll search the system name directly. So I'm ZTAC-DD. Search that. That highlights. Okay. We came through here yesterday. We were on a fleet yesterday here. So I look this way. There's a little bit of green over here. A lot of green over here. A little down here. I know MJ TAC is not far from here. And I want to get Enyo killed. So we're going to go towards MJ TAC. So I'm going to set 5B as a desto because there's a little bit of green around there. There's a setting you can do to somehow make Dotlan send destinations in-game for you. I don't have that setting set up, so I just go in-game and I search it and do through there. Yeah. So I'm going that way. Okay, so there are people in local. I don't have eyes on the outgate. Outgate could be bubbled. You never know. So I'm going to align to the outgate and use YOLOing it. I'm going to activate my nullifier just to be safe. Okay, so, oh, look, there's a Hell and a Revelation out. So that is why this system was green. So there are 2 capitals that were maybe ratting. Signal filaments take you to somewhere that's busy. So I'm assuming these 2 were out ratting earlier. I think they're in that POS. You see I have that force field that shows up at roughly the same distance as them. Yeah, so they're in a POS at one of the moons. POSes can only be at moons, generally. Yeah, so if I see that POS must be, yeah, between 9.6 and 9.9. I'm not going to go look at that. I don't want to get tackled or shot by POS. So, again, callouts. Tomlin jumping VVB. VVB is empty. So, because I know the system is empty, I'm going to just go gate to gate. There's a chance there's an anchored bubble, but the bubble's not a huge threat if there's nobody in system. So I'm just going to go gate to gate. No nullify. I will find the link for that YouTube video later. Amphion, I know Gideon shared it in TTT Discord. I'm not sure if it's been shared here, but it's recent. Okay. Tomlin jumping LH TAC. LH TAC is empty. So again, because the system's empty, I'm just going to keep going. If I look back at Dotlan, I can see, yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of green in these systems, but my destination has a bit more green around it. Yes, that is it. Amphion, it's already been shared. Thank you, Nikolai. Yes. Okay, so Tomlin jumping, AZA. AZA, also empty. Yeah, so I am leading us towards horde staging, so we will find some stuff. We'll probably find some rat carriers and things like that even. Some fun stuff. We'll see. Yeah, TTT is a different corp that the few of us have alts in, or mains in some cases. Trash Tier Tryhards is the full name. Yes, yeah, that's a lot of ex-uni people. Yeah. 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 As you hear the people speaking up, fellow TTT people. Okay, jumping 2xi. Tomlin going 2xi. Again, when I look on Dotlan, I'm not seeing a lot here. Oh, there is one. Okay. 2xi, one in local. Wait for it to load. Nothing from in-gate. Big system. This is drone area, and honestly, drone area is harder to hunt in because they hunt in different ones. When you're in other nullsec areas, havens are where 90% of people will be. 90% of the time, havens are where they're ratting. When you're in drone area, sometimes people are in hordes, sometimes sanctums, sometimes herds. I've seen squads. It's hard hunting in drone area for that. I can see all of the green sites except for one I'm in range of, and there's nothing. I can check this one drone horde that's out of range if I want to be thorough, just in case. Another thing you can do, you can check the bank. So this bank has 0 ISK in it, and it pays out in 1 minute. So nobody has been ratting in here in the last 2.5 hours if the bank had 0 ISK. So I know before I even get here, there's nobody at this site, unless they just started. All right, I'm going to continue on. I don't have eyes on the south gate, do I? Oh, it's within 2 AU, yeah. So yes, hunting in your own space, a little bit trickier because there's just so many choices for where there could be. If you are looking for where people are in other space, always check havens. Here, you got to check a few different. Okay, Tomlin into 5 BTAC, 5 BTAC, 4 in local. Okay, nothing visible from in-gate. I can see most of the system. There's a squad that's out of range. I'm going to check that squad. And that will put me in range of the others. So I'm shotgunning that. D-scan from here, clear. Yeah, so I can see the whole system other than that one gate. So I can say space is clear in 5 BTAC. Has it been over? Oh, geez, it has. Yeah, I'm happy to wind down at any time. I'm out in space, so I figured I'd keep going, and there's still people here watching. Until my hard drive crashes from this recording getting too long, we can keep going. Okay, so there's 2 systems next to this I want to check. WTAC-X is a dead end, so I'm going to go WTAC-X first. After that, we'll burn towards horde staging to get Daniel killed. Mm-hmm. I do have my wife's Christmas party for her work to go to in 2 hours, so I do have a hard stop there. I gotta go put on my suit shortly, but I got time. Got time. Okay, Tomlin into 5 BTAC, 10 in local. Myrmidon on D. Okay, so that Ishtar's on grid, but he's at that keep star. So that Ishtar is on tether. I'm not gonna bother. Oh, see another Ishtar is coming, and the Myrmidon. Okay, so I was a little slow getting here, so these guys are already in warp. I'm going to assume that other Ishtar is already in warp as well. I don't think I'll be able to catch that other one. These guys know I'm here. They're looking for me. But it never hurts to go check some others, so I'm going to warp to a drone horde in the middle, check that cluster. But I would assume that they're going to be safe. Other than that, yeah. Lots of times the Ishtars are one person multi-boxing, like 3 or 4. So if you see one Ishtar warping to a structure, assume that the others are also getting warp clicked at the same time or 1 second later. So they're probably going to be landing too. Again, most of the time you're not going to catch stuff. It's not your fault. These guys, they were already on tether when I got in here. So that means that there was somebody that reported us an intel in one of the previous systems. It happens. Ah, well. So I'd say, okay, FC, yeah. The people in, where am I? The people in WTAC X are all safed up. It's a bust coming back to you. One thing, you can confirm this too. Like, I'm going to go check. When I left grid, one Ishtar was on safe. Oh, that other Ishtar is still not on tether. I could try and find him. He's within one. Anything within one, I check my warp outs tab. What do you think? Is it a belt routing Ishtar? Is there an Ishtar in an asteroid belt? I mean, that'd be really silly, but I mean, stranger things have happened. Yeah, it's not in any of those. I'm not going to bother. Yeah, there it is. So it was just in warp here. Okay, I got another one I need to check out here. What was the other system? I go back. I'm looking at Dotlan again, and I see PYP, which is next door here. Oh, look at that. And there's a flycatcher that just jumped into YTAC X. So as a warning, there was a flycatcher at YTAC X. Oh, my D-scan is set short. That's not good. Want to set it back to big. So I see flycatcher on D. I think he came back. So that Rico in local is a flycatcher, I believe. I want to check PYP, but we'll see if this flycatcher wants to play with us first. I'm going to align to PYP gate. I'm going to look at it, and I'm going to see if there's something good to check, just in case it's bubbled. Skyhook in line with it, so I'm going to warp to the skyhook at 100. Again, I could just nullify. I really don't like using my nullifier. I like having it ready to go in case I land in a bubble. Okay, another +1 in local. We have this Gonza person, just +1 in local. Yeah, so we are getting closer to horde staging, so they are likely going to respond soon. I'm going to go check PYP. I have D-scan of it. It's clear. Oh, yes, and thank you for linking the class feedback form in the chat. Good to have there. Yes, please do fill out the class feedback form with your thoughts on the class. I know some of the slides need some updating there. I need to update, but let me know what you want to see more of. Okay, so here, PYP, I've got 4 in local, nothing on D from in-gate. I can see most of the center, but there's this cluster out here. So I'm going to shotgun drone horde out there. Again, we just saw people tethered up previously, so I am going to assume that they'll be unsafe. I do upload my class recordings to YouTube, so I will upload today's recording to YouTube once I have trimmed it down and everything. I put my old recordings on there, so you can go and see Intro to FCing or Bank Robbing on there. For some reason, my Intro to Bank Robbing class just blew up in the last week and got over 1,000 views. People want to steal stuff, I guess. But yeah, I'll put the link in Teaching General in the next day or two. Okay, space is clear in here. I'm not finding stuff. So I am going to set a new desto. Let me see. I will switch view back over to Dotlan. And let's see. So I'm in PYP. I'm going to go into Paragon Falls here. So click Paragon Falls. I can see we're going to come out here. So there's a bit of delta up there. There's a lot over here. Let's go towards like this area. I like the look of this. For those that don't know, MJ TAC there is horde staging, and that's where they all live. So when we get over here, it's going to be very hot, and there'll be lots of spicy stuff. So I'm going to set a desto for OP7. Again, I don't have the fancy Chrome login set up there, so I'm just going to go back to game, and I'm going to type in OP7, and I'm going to hope that was the letter O and not as the number. Yeah, so OP7, that's destination. And because I'm nice, I'm going to share it for Enyo there too, so Enyo can follow along. So I get some intel and fleet chat here. Enyo's telling me that there's a Scythe fleet in here. Yeah, we had a +1, so this Gonza is a Scythe fleet issue. Again, sometimes I like to just have intel in chat, so I know. I have D-scan on the outgate. The outgate's clear, so I'm going QZ1. And we will see if we can find an Ishtar or two. Oh, look at that. We got a Kiki on the gate. So this is what I was talking about yellow boxing. So this guy, if I was to tackle him now, he could just jump the gate. He's 10 kilometers off, but he could get there. I'm going to lock it up, though. And I'm just going to orbit this gate at 500 like Hipla will want me to. And I'm going to wait and see. So it has not started shooting me yet because it knows the same thing. If it shoots me now, I'm just going to jump through the gate and then it can't get me. There's a +1 here. Okay, so I just heard the shot. Oh, I'm being shot by rats. Lovely. And just so you know, we do have a key on this gate, and there was a gate flash. Okay, here they come. Look at this. We got a fleet coming in. Wonderful. Okay, so now they have multiple people. I'm going to get aggressed on this side of the gate. One of these is going to shoot me to try to force me through. But they're all going through. Oh, look, a rattlesnake. They were getting lots of fun stuff. Okay, the Scythe Fleet issue has me yellow box. Oh, rattlesnake has red boxed me. So I know that rattlesnake is now stuck on that side of the gate. So that rattlesnake cannot jump through after, but these other ones can. You know, this Kiki and Stiletto, they're safe. They can aggress me. They don't have bubbles here, though, so I can get off. Well, there's a Nidhogger here. Is their crab beacon up? Probably. So I can just warp away. I don't have to be here. They're going to go check the next gate. They're looking. What I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to bounce. And I'm bouncing off of a skyhook. As we're setting up for a fight, I want to try and get some tacticals now, as if we're in a fleet fight. So I'm going to start doing some of what I do now. Okay, I can see on D-scan there is a large disruptive bubble, so there are bubbles now. Okay, my armor is repaired. I am ready. So there is a bubble up in system, and there is a Nidhogg. Nidhogg carrier. They normally run something called a crab, the Concord Rogue Analysis Beacon. I don't see it on my overview, so it must not be doing that. It could just be at the force field, honestly. Yeah, it's in the force field. Okay, I saw those ships warped off to the next gate, so presumably they're trying to get ahead of us. So I'm going to assume the PVF gate now has people at it. I want to get eyes on it. Looking, I don't see anything in line with it, actually. There's no structures over there. Not seeing a whole lot in D-scan range of it. Okay, so this is a time where I am going to have to use my nullifier because that gate might be bubbled and there's nothing I can bounce off. I want eyes on it, though. I don't want to be at the gate at 0 because I'm just going to look. So I'm going to activate my nullifier and I'm going to warp to the gate within 100. Make sure my D-scan's on 360 again, too. Yeah, so as I land, oh, look at that. Yeah, so there's 4 bubbles up here. So this gate is probably hell camped with bubbles. They probably got them set up on a grid around it just to stop people from coming in. You'll see this happen. Oh, they were ready for me. Okay, so I landed 40 kilometers off them. I am in a faster ship than most of them, so I should be able to get away. Should being the keyword. I'm getting nuded and target painted. I'm going to quickly make a thing, and I'm going to bounce. I'm about to get tackled. Oh, I did get tackled. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to die here. The Kiki did get on top of me. I did not get off enough. What I was trying to do there was to make a bookmark so that I could warp back to the bookmark at 100. I was a little bit slow in warping to what I aligned to. Realistically, what I should have done there is I should have bookmarked, or I should have warped right away. Yeah. Enyo is now landing in the bubbles to deal with that. So yes, they had that set up well. There was nothing we could have bounced off near that gate to get to. So I had to use my nullifier, and I did land 40 off them. I was just slow. If I had overheated my micro warp drive away from them quicker, and if I had warped out to something quicker, I could have probably gotten away. But that was also, what, 6 people waiting for us? So that happens. I could have got my pod out too, because my pod wasn't bubbled, but I didn't want the pod to stay. So yeah, I'm back here in Cheetah now. Okay. I've been talking for 2 hours straight here. I've covered a lot. Yeah, last chance. Any questions people have, I am happy to answer. Yeah. But like I said, scouting, you die. It happens. Ideally, what I wanted to do there was I wanted to land far enough away that I could have descanned that fleet. Then I could copy and paste the descan into dscan.info, and I could send that to my FC. So I could say, FC, this is what is on that gate. Unfortunately, because there was only one direction to get to that specific gate and there was nothing to bounce off of, they were set up and waiting for me in range. If I could have bounced off something else and land 100 kilometers from them, I could have gotten away. I could have been okay. But because I landed 40 kilometers off them and I was slow to respond, it did not work out. Yeah, dscan.info, very useful tool as a scout. Just didn't get a chance to use it today. Yeah, Yes, I did wait too long to warp out. I could have just bounced off by warping to something. Yeah. I took a minute. I made a bookmark. I was talking. I could have survived if I had just warped out. Yes. Uh, Trying to do too many things at once. I did see one question. Would the class have ever ended if I hadn't been destroyed? Well, I was trying to get to MJ TAC and get destroyed, so I suppose so. Yeah. Okay, last call for questions. I know I missed a lot of what was going on in chat while I was out there. Oh, yes, some appreciation of my Emily in Paris title. Yeah, that was a great question. Yes. I hope this has piqued some interest in scouting amongst people. Again, a lot of what I was doing was more advanced. You don't have to be that advanced. You just descan, warp to stuff, tackle it. Question, does the fleet follow you or they sit and wait to hear from multiple scouts? So the FC directs where the fleet is. Generally, the fleet stays one jump behind the scout. So they will be close, but they will be in a separate system so that they're not scaring the things you're hunting. Like those two Ishtars I caught, if they had seen 20 people on local, they might have gotten safe, but they just saw me or they didn't, so I got them. But yes, heavily recommend scouting. Again, FCs love scouts. We always need scouts. Was this recorded? Yes, I did record this. I will edit the video and get it on YouTube sometime this weekend, and I'll put the link in Teaching General when I do. Yes, there is a corp skill plan about tackling and scouting that should be okay. So yes, if you go to your skill plans and go to corporation plans, I believe it's, yeah, it's on the last page here. Yeah, this E-Uni, scouting, and tackle. This is a useful plan for it. Again, you don't have to have everything to 5. I have 3 of these skills. I haven't gotten to 5 yet. They're all about speed, so they're ones I should, but like 20 days. Oh, I gotta get perfect links first. I'll do that later. But yes, get some of the other skills in this because yes, this will get you in the right spot. It'll get you in what you need. Interceptors is the big one. Yeah. Any of the speed skills, the range skills, those are good to have. Yes, as someone pointed out too, this is like perfect end game goals. Like, don't be turned off if you see that this is like a 300-day train for you. If you can get into the Condor, you can scout in the Condor. You can try that. The Condor is a great one to use for scouting to start. Work your way up towards Malediction eventually. But yeah, the E-Uni Tackle Condor, this one, great ship to use. It's got the micro warp drive. It's got the point and the scram. You know, you can put some fireworks in the high slots. Some people like to put fireworks in, so they shoot the Ishtars with fireworks. But yeah, you can use the Merlin Tackle Condor for any scouting needs. Can I recap the fundamentals for a new bro to scout? So basically, what you heard me say when I was jumping into systems is the majority of it. When you jump into a system, you check local, you check dscan, you say what there is. You warp around or you check until you find some targets on dscan, and then you use dscan to narrow them down. So yeah, we really need to run an intro to dscan class. Because descanning itself, the hardest part of scouting is probably the descanning, honestly, just getting used to that. I'll get out here in Jita and ship to show a bit. But yeah, descanning is the tricky part. I would also recommend watching Clarity's recording. Clarity's, like I said, I learned to scout from Clarity's, so a lot of our ways might be similar, but he is just better at a lot of it too. He's a pro. In his scouting video, his 1 hour recording, he tackles an orca and he third parties a fight that's going on. So you get to see what a scout does during a fight a bit more. But yeah, for those not familiar with DScan, I'm not going through a full DScan class now, but yeah, it's the green circle around you on the map. To find targets, you normally set your angle to 5 and then you scan individual things. You scan those by holding V and clicking them. you can click on your overview. So if I click on my overview at the main one, I can see all this. Ooh, so if I wanted to tell the enemy about or my FC about a fleet, so I just did a 5-degree D-scan of the G to trade hub. It's 1 AU away, so I'm going to shrink down to like shorter distance just in case. So what I do, I take this, I control A in my D-scan window, then I control C. Now I go over to my browser window and I go to dscan.info and I just control V that in there. I hit submit and this gives me this nice little dscan output that says a summary of everything there. I control C that there. I go back to game. I say FC, here's a dscan. So now the FC can click on that and the FC can see exactly what is on grid. So that's a very key part of scouting. When you find an enemy fleet, try and get your FC at dscan.info of it so that they can load that up and see what they're facing. Very useful. Other than that, yeah, local threat was the other tool I talked about. This might kill local threat trying to put 1900 names into it, but local threat is just like dscan. You control C the local people, you paste it in there, and then you can send that to your FC, and it gives them a summary of what corps are in local and everything. I'm going to dock back up and get in my training clone though. Okay, we are at the 2.5 hour mark. That seems like a good spot to end. One more time, the class feedback form. I think Anvan just linked it like 6 minutes ago, so you can scroll up and find it. Please give me any feedback you have there. Final thing just to say is, again, scouting is so needed. We always need scouts. And scouting is fun. It is interactive. It's a lot more than just pressing F1, and it's a great learning step up. So there's a lot you can learn from scouting and going through it. So I highly recommend everyone try scouting. Highly recommend you give it a shot. If you want to just do like I did, but in a Condor, it's going to cost you under 10 million ISK to go out in a Condor and do that. If you want to FC or you want to scout on a fleet where one of us is FCing, just say happy to have new scouts along. But yes, I am going to now go answer some phone calls and get a drink of water. Again, end my stream.